of Papua Barat is full of wonders, both from its people and its nature.
As someone who was born and raised on this island, we are proud to introduce you to the beautiful Manokwari. Manokwari is known as the home of the Arfak tribes, one of the largest indigenous groups living in Papua Barat. This tribe consists of several tribes such as So, Meah, Molia, and Hatam.
When you arrive at the Arfak Mountains, you will be welcomed by a famous dance in Manokwari called Tumbutana, using arrow, machete, and other attributes. The dancers show excitement to welcome guests into their village.
One of the unique things about this dance is that its movement looks like snake moves. Snake is a symbol and majesty of the Arfak tribes. As this dance has no limits, everyone is welcome to feel the warmth.
Not far from the village, there are also two famous lakes that are cherished by the locals called Anggi Giji and Anggi Gida Lake, or also known as Danau Laki-Laki and Danau Perempuan. This exquisite place got its name from local folklore about lovers who are separated from each other.
So, Mercy, when you come to visit Arfak Mountain, you will find this traditional house of the Arfak tribes. They call that Rumah Kaki Seribu.
Living its name, the house has lots of places that act as a foundation and protect the people from the wild animal or even like earthquake and cold weather.
This looks cool, yeah?
Known as the green gold, sewing an areca nut has become a tradition in Papua that has been handed down for centuries. It can be seen in everyday life and most certainly in ceremony, where the nuts are distributed to the guests as a sign of friendship and kinship. Therefore, if you are invited by a local to an areca nut season, try it and experience the culture firsthand.
Around 160 years ago, two German missionaries set foot for the first time in Papua. They teach the locals about Christian religion and also modern living throughout their entire life. And for that, Mansinam Island is known as a Gospel Island tourist spot. It has a giant cross sculpture that you can see from miles away. The island of Manokwari prides and landmark. The Mansinam Island is the symbol of religious harmony and tolerance.
Not only full of history, Mansinam also has crystal clear water and beautiful beaches around the island. You can definitely go snorkel and see corals around here. The Sea of Mansinam also hides a famous secret, the World War II ships that have sunk for hundreds of years. What a great destination to dive.
The unique things about Pasir Putih is the food, you know. There's a lot of things like just gado-gado and
Rujak.
Yes, of course it is.
But I prefer the gado-gado juga. Oh,
Thank
welcome.
you.
It belongs to me. Terima kasih, Bu. It belongs to you. Mercy, in Manokwari it's not only about Pasir Putih, it's not about Mansinam, but it's also about Bakaro, you know.
Well, I think so because when we talk about bakaro, we talk about feeding a fish. Am I right?
You're totally right. I just want to show you something. Look at that guy, the old guy. Bapak Lucas, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's feeding a fish.
Can we go there?
Let's help him. Pak Lukas. Aduh, Bapak,
Oke,
apa kabar?
Bapak.
Lama sekali.
Ya, salam.
Bapak kasih makan nih.
Ya, saya kasih makan.
Bapak ini ikan apa saja yang ada? Nanti
Ikan bolana, kapas, bubara, kakatua.
Oh, ini cuma Bapak yang bisa panggil kah atau?
Tidak, semua bisa.
Oh, semua bisa. Jadi tidak ada cara khusus ya.
Tidak ada
Oh,
hal-hal lain.
tidak ada hal-hal lain. Jadi dia punya unik itu bukan karena ini tempat spesial ya Bapak, tapi ini
Iya.
lautan lepas saja ya.
Laut lepas ya.
Laut lepas, ikan-ikan dari laut segala macam tinggal datang kemari makan.
Iya, ya. Banyak yang katakan ini karena kebiasaan, tapi saya katakan apa yang saya perlu saya minta daripada
Yang maha kuasa. Oh.
Lalu katakan kebiasaan ini, ya saya biasa selalu tanyakan kepada mereka, apakah yang saya tanya ini kolam kah? Lalu katakan bahasa kata kebiasaan itu.
Oh.
Kebiasaan itu ini laut lepas hari
Ini laut lepas. Ya, jadi siapa ikan manapun bisa kemari makan nih.
Kalau ini apa Bapak?
rayap.
Oh, rayap.
Rayap.
Iya.
Ini Bapak punya media buat kasih makan orang. Bapak punya ini.
Makanan selain
Makan.
rayap kami kasih makan nasi, pisang masak, ampas kelapa.
Mambre,
Ya.
talking about Papua, it's also talking about papeda.
Yeah, some of my friends just ask me about the papeda, but they don't know that papeda made from what.
You have to mention for them that it is made by sago trees
And to tell complete with the yellow soup fish, let me do by myself
and don't forget to add,
some veggies.
yes, such as kangkong.
Kangkong.
Woo.
If you like the healthy one, put some the hot chili. But I prefer to eat that with the food and also smell it.
It look gorgeous.
You know what? Smells so hungry. Thank you. If you want to keep talking, I go first.
Oh, I'm going to eat right now.
You know, people around the world must try this. I'm pretty sure for that.
And then, agree with you.
beauty of life lies in its diversity. The journey we have taken you to see our beautiful home has awakened us that we have the best of everything here in Manokwari.
After seeing our culture, our home, our sea, our land, and our forests, we hope you can feel the warmth that awaits you in the east part of Indonesia, Papua Barat, Manokwari.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Good evening, distinguished guests, Bapak dan Ibu yang terhormat, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Manokwari, West Papua Province, Indonesia. Or, in local greetings, I will say, Acemo. It's a local greeting, so it's Acemo is local greetings, right? Am I saying it correctly? Right? Did I say it correct? Right, okay. Whew, thank God. So, is there anyone here for the very first time? So do I. How are you guys feeling tonight? How is experience been so far in Papua? Do you guys feel what? Relaxed? Feel welcome? Yes? I can hear you, everyone. Have you guys had your dinner? Yeah, okay. Now I can hear you. All right. My name is Shafira, and as you can see, I'm wearing traditional clothes from Papua. It's quite comfortable. You probably might try it. All right, and it's such an honor for me to be here among all these beautiful people right here as your host for the 4th pre-summit of Y20 Indonesia 2022 Diversity and Inclusion. And for your information, this event is held in accordance to health protocols and COVID-19 regulations. In Indonesia, all of our speakers and performers have been fully vaccinated and tested negative, so they will remove their mask for a better presentation. And also, for attending participants here, we advise you to wear your mask throughout the event. We would like to ask and remind you that you can refill your drinking bottle at the nearest water station. All right. To start with, I would like to extend our warmest welcome to our distinguished guest, His Excellency Bapak Zainuddin Amali, Minister of Youth and Sports of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Bapak Paulus Waterpau, Acting Governor of West Papua Province, represented by Bapak Nathaniel Domingos Mandakan, Regional Secretary of West Papua Province, Forkopimda Provinsi Papua Barat, Bupati Manokwari, Wakil Bupati Manokwari Selatan, Bupati Kabupaten Kota seprovinsi Papua Barat atau yang mewakili, pimpinan organisasi pemuda di Papua Barat, Ketua KNPI Papua Barat, tokoh-tokoh pemuda, tokoh adat, tokoh agama, dan tokoh masyarakat di Papua Barat, Ketua Panitia Y20 Bapak Melkias Werinusa, co-chairs of Y20 Indonesia 2022, all of the delegates, observers, and guest observers of Y20 Indonesia 2022. So since this is my first time to Manokwari, I had a splendid moment. I tried traditional food. It's called papeda. Have you ever tasted or tried it? Did you? So how is it? Do you guys enjoy it? Do you guys love it? How is your first experience to try the papeda? What is your first impressions? Amazing. Yes, it's like, like you put something very slimy into your throat, right? But it turns out it's very nice. It tastes so good, isn't it? You agree with me? Cool. All right. So everyone here today in the Astani, West Papua province, and to all of Y20 delegates, participants, and invited guests around the world who are watching virtually, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or in local, we call it Achemo. Welcome to the fourth pre-summit of Y20 Indonesia 2022 Diversity and Inclusion. I think it's not fair if I'm the only one who said Achemo, right? How about everyone greetings, sing with me. We say Achemo together. Okay? Okay, on my mark, in 3, 2, 1, Achemo! Great. And everyone, Y20 is a forum for future young leaders from all countries of G20 members. We are here to discuss and exchange ideas to reach a joint agreement in regard to the agenda of the G20 presidency with our theme From Recovery to Resilience, Rebuilding the Youth Agenda Beyond COVID-19. The year summit will be held in Jakarta and Bandung, Indonesia in July 2022. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now we would like you to rise from your seat for the national anthem of the Republic of Indonesia, and which will be continued with Lagu Tanah Papua, led by Lince Baransano.
puja selalu tanah Papua, pulau indah. Hutan dan lautmu yang membisu selalu, cendrawasih burung emas. Gunung-gunung lamba-lamba yang penuh misteri, yang kupuja selalu keindahan amu yang mempesona. Sungaimu yang deras mengalirkan emas. Oh ya Tuhan, terima kasih. Gunung-gunung lembah-lembah yang penuh misteri, yang kupuja selalu keindahan amu yang mempesona. Sungaimu yang deras mengalirkan emas. Oh ya Tuhan, terima kasih. Oh ya Tuhan, terima kasih.
Chair, thank you everyone. Please be seated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before starting today's event, we kindly invite you to join us in giving praise and thanking the Lord Almighty. We invite Reverend John Hendrik Rumahlatu to the stage to lead the prayers.
Bapak Ibu yang dikasihi Tuhan, kita akan berdoa untuk mengawali seluruh rangkaian acara kita di malam hari ini, dan kita akan satu dalam doa. Izinkan saya membawakan doa di malam hari ini secara Kristen. Bapak Ibu Saudara yang beragama lain bisa menyesuaikan. Kita satu dalam doa. Selalu ada ucapan syukur yang kami naikkan kepadamu Tuhan, karena kami percaya kami boleh ada sebagaimana kami ada sampai dengan malam hari ini. Karena kasih dan kekuatan yang Tuhan boleh nyatakan atas kehidupan kami. Kami percaya ketika kami boleh ada di malam hari ini dengan sukacita yang boleh kami nikmati Tuhan. Dari pagi sampai dengan malam hari ini, kami percaya bahwa semuanya karena tangan Tuhan yang bekerja atas kehidupan kami. Bapa di surga, malam hari ini kami sungguh bersyukur ketika kami boleh ada di kegiatan ini Tuhan. Y20. Kami percaya ini adalah bagian yang Engkau kehendaki dalam kehidupan kami, untuk kami saling bersatu satu dengan yang lain Tuhan. Kami bersyukur ketika Tuhan juga boleh kirimkan anak-anak muda dari berbagai delegasi negara untuk boleh ada bersama dengan kami. Bahkan juga pemuda-pemuda dari berbagai daerah di Indonesia. Bahkan juga setiap kami yang ada di Manokwari yang boleh bersama dalam kegiatan ini. Tuhan, kami menyerahkan semuanya dalam tangan-Mu. Kami percaya apa yang kami lakukan di malam hari ini, bahkan seterusnya Tuhan, sampai dengan kegiatan ini selesai, semua yang kami bicarakan, semua yang kami lakukan, hal-hal yang kami diskusikan dalam kegiatan ini Tuhan, biarlah itu semua mendatangkan kemuliaan bagi nama Tuhan. Dan kami percaya setiap anak-anak muda yang tampil sebagai pribadi, yang tampil sebagai anak-anak muda yang berkualitas, itu semua adalah karena tangan Tuhan yang bekerja atas kehidupan kami. Terima kasih. Kami bersyukur ketika pemerintah daerah Papua Barat boleh bekerja sama dengan panitia dari pusat, bahkan juga panitia lokal. Kami berdoa Tuhan, biarlah jeripayah yang boleh mereka lakukan untuk persiapan kegiatan ini, Tuhan tetap berkati kehidupan mereka. Setiap jerih lelah kehidupan mereka Tuhan, Tuhan berikan kekuatan, kesehatan selalu. Terima kasih Bapa, terima kasih Tuhan. Sekali lagi kami berdoa menyerahkan setiap kami yang boleh ada di tempat ini malam hari ini. Siapapun kami, dari manapun kami berada Tuhan, kami percaya Tuhan bahwa apa yang kami lakukan di malam hari ini tetap ada sukacita dari Tuhan, tetap ada damai sejahtera yang daripada Tuhan. Terima kasih Bapa, terima kasih Tuhan. Kami berdoa sekali lagi untuk cuaca, untuk keamanan, semuanya kami serahkan dalam tangan Tuhan. Kami percaya ketika kami mengawali semuanya di dalam nama Tuhan Yesus, maka Tuhan sendiri akan beracara. Tuhan sendiri akan mengawal setiap kami sehingga damai sejahtera, shalom yang dari Tuhan itu yang akan menyertai kehidupan kami. Kekuatan, kesehatan daripada Tuhan itu yang akan menyertai kehidupan kami. Berdoa menyerahkan setiap kami dalam tangan-Mu. Ini doa kami Tuhan, ini syukur kami, dan hanya di dalam nama Tuhan kami Yesus Kristus kami berdoa ucap syukur kepadamu. Haleluya, amin.
Terima kasih, thank you Bapak Pendeta John. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, next we will show you a video to introduce the Indonesian Youth Diplomacy, or IYD, as the organizing committee of Y20 Indonesia 2022, and to show you what we have accomplished so far on the road to Y20 Indonesia 2022. Please enjoy.
Indonesian Youth Diplomacy is a non-profit youth organization that actively promotes international exposure and drives inclusive empowerment for Indonesian youths to be influential voices at the national and international level. Through its 4 overriding missions: sustainability, inclusivity, relevance, and impact, we aim to ensure that the Indonesian youths understand the importance of their voice and role in national and global diplomacy and policymaking. Following the G20 presidency of Indonesia, IYD was given the mandate to be the official organizing committee for Y20 Indonesia 2022. Since 2010, Indonesia has been represented at the Y20 summits by astounding youths. 2010 G20 Youth Summit Vancouver, Canada. 2011 G20 Youth Summit Paris, France. 2012 G20 Youth Summit Washington, D.C., USA. 2013 Y8 Summit London, United Kingdom. 2013 Y20 Summit St. Petersburg, Russia. 2014 Y20 Summit Sydney, Australia. 2015 Y20 Summit Istanbul, Turkey. 2016 Y20 Summit Beijing and Shanghai, China. 2017 Y20 Summit Berlin, Germany. 2018 Y20 Summit Cordoba, Argentina. 2019 Y20 Summit Tokyo, Japan. 2020 Y20 Summit Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And 2021 Y20 Summit Milan, Italy. And now, it is time to welcome the Y20 delegates to our home, Indonesia. Right after Y20 Italy 2021, we started with a post-summit dissemination of the Y20 Italy 2021 communique with our G20 co-Sherpas and various stakeholders. Then we moved on to roadshows for the Indonesian delegate selection process and held a media gathering for the launch of Y20 Indonesia 2022. In January, we launched the Y20 white paper. And finally, we carried out our recruitment of the Indonesian and ASEAN delegation for Y20 Indonesia 2022. This year, our theme is From Recovery to Resilience, Rebuilding the Youth Agenda Beyond COVID-19. With 4 priority areas: youth employment, digital transformation, sustainable and livable planet, and diversity and inclusion. This year, for each pre-summit, we shall take you around Indonesia, where you shall see our diversity, cultures, people, and especially our youths. All of these will bring us to the Y20 Summit, which shall take place in 2 cities, Jakarta and Bandung. Y20 Summit Indonesia 2022 will also give youth startups and initiatives a chance to present their works by providing them a forum to network and for the international community to acknowledge them and perhaps be interested in purchasing their products at the Y20 2022 Virtual Expo. So let us move from recovery to resilience by rebuilding the youth agenda beyond COVID-19. See you at the Y20 Summit Indonesia 2022.
Let's give a big round of applause, and I think we're ready for our Y20 Summit in Indonesia, and I think we're ready to recover because of the pandemic, of course, because I think we have that kind of a resilient spirit in our blood for the past 2 years. And let's move on to our next agenda. We'll listen to a report by the co-chair of Y20 Indonesia 2022. Please welcome Ibu Nurul Hidayatul Ummah.
Oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. His Excellency Bapak Zainuddin Amali, the Minister of Youth and Sport of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Bapak Paulus Waterpauw, Acting Governor of West Papua Province, and presented by Bapak Nathaniel Domingus Mandacan, Regional Secretary of West Papua Province. Thank you so much for coming, Bapak. And Forkopimda Provinsi Papua Barat, Bupati Manokwari, Wakil Bupati Manokwari Selatan, Bupati Kabupaten Kota seprovinsi Papua Barat atau yang mewakili, pimpinan organisasi pemuda Papua Barat, Ketua KNPI Papua Barat, tokoh-tokoh pemuda, kota adat, tokoh agama dan tokoh masyarakat di Papua Barat, Ketua Panitia Y20, Bapak Melkias Warinus, co-chairs of Y20 Indonesia 2022, and all of the delegates, observers, and guest observers of Youth 20 Indonesia 2022. I also want to say hello to Bang Billy Membrasar. Please give applause for him. The delegates of Youth 20 Indonesia 2020 in Saudi Arabia. Is that right? Yes, thank you so much for coming, Bang Billy. Thank you so much for your support for Y20 Indonesia 2022. Okay. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to send my gratitude and thank you so much for everyone that today here we can gather together for attending the prestigious event, the 4th Pre-Summit Y20 Indonesia 2022 in here, Manokwari, West Papua. I also want to thank you so much for the local government of West Papua who has supported us from the beginning until now, the event. And thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for your attendance and everything here in the Manokwari, Papua. And also I want to say welcome to Manokwari, West Papua, the beautiful eastern island of Indonesia, which has not only beautiful nature, but also culture, people, and languages. Please give applause for Manokwari, West Papua. All right, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time since G20 was founded in 1999, Indonesia will be the G20 presidency in 2022. The theme of this G20 in Indonesia is Recover Together, Recover Stronger. The Youth 20 or Y20 as one of the official engagement group of the G20 is a platform for young people across the G20 countries to have a dialogue, negotiate, and propose solutions for the world's most pressing issues. We will discuss and present our best voice and performance to make changes in every level of government and public policy. Each year, the presidency of the Y20 decides the priority areas considered to be most pressing and relevant to the global youth. For the Y20 Summit 2022 in Indonesia, there are 4 priority areas as input to the discussion for the communique. There are youth employment, digital transformations, sustainable and livable planet, and lastly, diversity and inclusion, which will be the main agenda of this 4th pre-summit event of Y20 Indonesia 2022. All right, ladies and gentlemen, around the world, inequality affects all segments of the population and is particularly detrimental to the marginalized and vulnerable groups, which are often the youth. At the moment, the world has the largest youth generation in history. There are more than 1 billion young people in the world today. They represent the largest generation of young people in history. Young people can be powerful force for development and social and economic transformation when provided with the skills, knowledge, and opportunities. One of the most significant challenges facing the youth today is inadequate human capital investment and rising intolerance among societies. Ladies and gentlemen, our survey of youth in G20 countries shows that 3/4 of young people in the G20 believe that a diverse and inclusive society is essential for a better and more resilient future. Our 4th pre-summit of diversity and inclusion areas focusing on 2 topics to help drive greater diversity and inclusion in the G20. First, education. Second, creative economy. Focusing on improving human capital in the largest youth generation in history can be a powerful way for achieving social development. It can enhance the well-being of individuals and communities and enable people to realize their full potential to fully exercise their rights. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused the largest education disruption on history and has exposed the extent to which education systems were unprepared for crisis. For young people, the implications include greater risks of dropping out of school, increased the anxiety, greater vulnerability of exploitation, and in the long term, increasingly limited job prospects and opportunities. So, a transformative approach to the education system is required to guarantee lifelong learning opportunities and universal access to quality education, recognition of alternative learning, qualification, and providing multiple learning pathways can help ensure that young people from all backgrounds and social economic status can continue developing their human capital. The creative economy fosters inclusive values by introducing local culture to global audiences, employing young people and members of vulnerable groups and adopting innovative ways of working. However, lockdowns imposed during the pandemic have severely affected this sector. Being in micro business, engaging in formal work practice, and having few tangible access put creative workers and business in a fragile situation. So diversity and inclusion benefit all. In view of the theme of Indonesian G20 Presidency 2022, Recover Together, Recover Stronger, young people's contribution to supporting an inclusive recovery and embracing diversity in our society has never been more urgent and important. Although the pandemic has revealed the flaws of existing system and exacerbated the risks of divisions, it has presented an opportunity and an urgent call for concrete actions, coordinated solutions, and clear frameworks to tackle inequalities, empower the vulnerable and marginalized, and enable sustainable growth. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, as young people who have almost half of the populations, let's work together. Let's go hand in hand together for make the changes by doing the concrete actions and raise our voice to ensure the equal education and economic equality for all young people all around the world. So in the future, there will be no more young people who drop out of school, who lack access of the better education, who can afford the best education, who can afford their dream and everything. So we are here together for discussing, for finding the solution how young people in the future can be more independent and more creative and more sustained. So the future will be brighter and brighter because your voice matters. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm so sorry for my faults, my wrong, and everything. Thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you so much for coming in Manokwari, West Papua, the beautiful eastern island of Indonesia. And welcome. Thank you so much. Allahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Nurul, the co-chair of Y20 Indonesia 2022. Next, we'll listen to the welcoming remarks from the Minister of Youth and Sports of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Zainuddin Amali, represented by Assistant Deputy for Partnership and Youth Appreciation, Ministry of Youth and Sports of Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Wisler Manalu.
Izinkan saya hadir di tengah-tengah kita semua mewakili Menteri Pemuda dan Olahraga Bapak Zainuddin Amali karena kesibukan beliau tidak bisa meninggalkan tugas yang dibuatkan kepada beliau. Terima kasih. Sebelum saya membacakan sambutan beliau, saya akan membacakan sebuah pantun untuk kita semua untuk bisa menyemangati khususnya para kaum muda. Kayu bundar jadikan roda, lebah madu suka menyengat. Bangkitlah wahai para pemuda, nikmati perjuangan penuh semangat. Terima kasih. Yang saya hormati Bapak Gubernur Papua Barat, Bapak Paul Waterpau. Yang kami hormati Co-Chair Y20 Indonesia tahun 2022. Yang kami hormati pimpinan daerah Bapak Sekda, Bapak Nathanael, dan juga pimpinan musyawarah daerah di lingkungan Papua Barat. Yang kami hormati para wali kota, bupati, dan seluruh organisasi perangkat yang ada hadir di tengah-tengah kita pada hari ini. Delegasi Y20 tahun 2022 dan para perwakilan pemuda dari anggota G20 yang hadir bersama-sama kita, baik yang hadir secara luring maupun yang hadir secara daring. Hadirin yang berbahagia, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Acara ini merupakan rangkaian terakhir dari acara pra-KTT Y20 Indonesia 2022 menjelang konferensi tingkat tinggi yang akan berlangsung di Jakarta dan Bandung. Pada kesempatan ini saya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada pemerintah Provinsi Papua Barat yang telah memberikan dukungannya terhadap penyelenggaraan acara ini. Saya juga ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada para tamu dan pembicara yang bersedia hadir dan berpartisipasi dalam acara baik secara virtual maupun hadir secara langsung. Para delegasi yang saya hormati, hadirin sekalian, berangkat dari adanya yang kepentingan yang berpengaruh semua segmen penduduk dan terutama merugikan kelompok-kelompok yang terpinggirkan dan rentan, yang seringkali termasuk di dalamnya adalah para pemuda. Topik keberagaman dan inklusi diangkat untuk pertama kalinya dalam sejarah Y20. Dan untuk pembahasan kali ini ada dua subtema yang diangkat dalam topik Diversity and Inclusion. Yang pertama adalah pendidikan inklusif dan yang kedua adalah ekonomi kreatif. Para delegasi yang saya hormati, hadirin sekalian, fokus pada peningkatan kapasitas dan kualitas SDM pada generasi muda terbesar dalam sejarah dapat menjadi cara yang ampuh untuk mencapai pembangunan sosial. Karena itu kami senang dengan topik yang diangkat dalam forum kali ini, sehingga kami dapat menerima rekomendasi dari kalian bagaimana meningkatkan kualitas SDM untuk meningkatkan kualitas hidup kaum muda. Adalah suatu keharusan bagi pemuda, bagi semua orang untuk mempersiapkan dan memberikan tindakan nyata, solusi terkoordinasi, dan kerangka kerja yang jelas untuk mengatasi ketidaksetaraan, memberdayakan yang rentan dan yang terpinggirkan, dan memungkinkan terwujud pertumbuhan yang berkelanjutan. Pra-KTT ini akan menjadi platform yang bagus bagi kaum muda untuk berdialog, bernegosiasi, dan mengusulkan solusi atas isu-isu yang akan dibahas, guna menghasilkan seperangkat kesepakatan tentang keberagaman dan inklusi yang nanti akan disampaikan pada Y20 KTT Indonesia 2022 di Jakarta dan Bandung. Para delegasi yang saya hormati, hadirin yang berbahagia, saya ingin menyampaikan harapan terbaik saya kepada semua delegasi, peserta, dan perwakilan pemuda di sini. Saya sangat berharap bahwa kita dapat bekerja sama untuk menciptakan kehidupan yang lebih baik untuk masa depan. Demikian, selamat berdiskusi dan tetap jaga kesehatan. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Berkah, Om Santi Santi Om. Semoga Tuhan memberkati kita semua. Saya akan tutup dengan sebuah pantun. Kain putih dijadikan batik, sehelai dipotong sepanjang papan. Hai para pemuda, bangkit menyongsong masa depan. Pemuda maju.
Thank you, Bapak Whistler Manalu, Assistant Deputy for Partnership and Youth Appreciation, Ministry of Youth and Sports of Republic of Indonesia. And I think it's really important to have the support from the government for the Y20 summit here in Indonesia. And as he mentioned, that it can be a great platform to discuss about so many issues and ideas from the young generations. All right, all the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the success of the fourth pre-summit of Y20 Indonesia 2022 Diversity and Inclusion could not be possible without the tremendous cooperation of the local government of West Papua Province as the host. Therefore, we would like to invite the acting governor of West Papua Province, who is represented by Bapak Nathaniel Domingus Mandachan as Regional Secretary of West Papua Province, to give the opening speech. Please welcome Bapak Nathaniel.
Pertama-tama, sebelum saya membacakan sambutan tertulis Gubernur Papua Barat pada acara pembukaan side event Y20 Provinsi Papua Barat pada hari ini 18 Juni 2022, saya menyampaikan permohonan maaf karena pada tanggal 16 Bapak Gubernur bersama para gubernur lainnya di seluruh Indonesia dan para bupati yang ditunjuk sebagai penjabat melakukan pertemuan di Jakarta dalam rangka kegiatan-kegiatan pemerintahan ke depan. Oleh karena itu, izinkan saya untuk membacakan sambutan tertulis Gubernur Papua Barat dan Bapak Ibu mendengarkan secara seksama. Shalom. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan dan salam sehat. Selamat malam untuk kita sekalian. Yang terhormat Menteri Pemuda dan Olahraga Republik Indonesia atau pejabat yang mewakili, yang terhormat pimpinan Serpa dan Panitia Nasional G20, yang saya hormati staf khusus Presiden Republik Indonesia, Adik Gracia Billy Mambrasar, terima kasih atas kehadiran, dan ini adalah kebanggaan anak-anak Papua, pemuda-pemuda Papua di saat ini. Yang saya hormati Ketua Dewan Perwakilan Rakyat Papua Barat yang diwakili Ketua Komisi Otsus. Yang saya hormati dan muliakan Ketua Majelis Rakyat Papua Barat, yang saya hormati Forum Pimpinan Daerah Provinsi Papua Barat pada malam hari ini hadir Bapak Kapolda, Bapak Kabinda, juga Bapak-Bapak pimpinan Forum Pimpinan Daerah yang lain. Yang saya hormati dan kasihi para Bupati, Wali Kota se-Papua Barat yang malam hari ini hadir, Wakil Bupati Manokwari Selatan, juga para sekda mewakili para bupati. Yang saya hormati dan kasihi pimpinan organisasi perangkat daerah, provinsi dan kabupaten kota se-Papua Barat. Yang saya hormati dan kasihi tokoh agama, tokoh adat, tokoh perempuan, tokoh pemuda. Yang saya hormati dan kasihi pimpinan Indonesia Youth Diplomacy 20 beserta tim, para utusan pemuda yang mewakili lembaga ataupun individu dari negara-negara G20 dan negara lainnya, baik secara nasional maupun daerah. Ketua Panitia Provinsi W20 dan Y20 Papua Barat dan seluruh anggota panitia yang saya banggakan, para undangan serta hadirin yang saya hormati dan banggakan pula. Pertama-tama sebagai umat yang percaya kepada Tuhan yang Maha Kuasa, saya ajak kita semua untuk menaikkan puji dan syukur kehadirat Tuhan yang Maha Kuasa atas perkenaannya sehingga pada malam ini kita bisa berkumpul dalam rangka mengikuti pembukaan kegiatan Side Event Y20 di Manokwari, ibu kota Provinsi Papua Barat. Atas nama pemerintah dan masyarakat Papua Barat, saya menyampaikan selamat datang di ibu kota Manokwari, ibu kota Provinsi Papua Barat, dan terima kasih serta apresiasi yang tinggi atas kepercayaan yang diberikan negara kepada kami di Provinsi Papua Barat untuk menjadi tuan rumah pelaksanaan Side Event Y20 Pre-Summit keempat menuju penyelenggaraan pertemuan G20 di Bali dan KTT baik di Jakarta maupun di Bandung yang akan datang. Hadirin yang saya hormati dan banggakan, pelaksanaan Side Event Y20 ini merupakan peristiwa monumental bagi pemerintah dan masyarakat di Papua Barat. Oleh karena kegiatan ini menghimpun berbagai elemen pemuda tidak hanya tingkat nasional, bahkan juga tingkat global. Ini merupakan ajang pertemuan yang mengkolaborasi berbagai pemikiran inovatif dan kreatif di kalangan pemuda bagi kemajuan pembangunan Indonesia, tetapi juga berkontribusi bagi kemajuan dunia dan kemaslahatan umat manusia. Pemuda hari ini adalah pemimpin masa depan. Oleh karena itu, terima kasih atas kehadiran saudara-saudara pemuda dari berbagai penjuru di Manokwari. Pemuda adalah masa depan bangsa dan dunia. Bahkan ukuran kemajuan suatu bangsa terletak pada pundak pemuda yang cerdas, unggul, kreatif, inovatif, dan visioner. Selaku pemerintah daerah dan masyarakat di Papua Barat, kami berterima kasih dan berharap bahwa momentum pelaksanaan Side Event Y20 ini akan memberikan dampak besar bagi kemajuan pemuda di Papua Barat untuk bangkit dan menata diri menjadi pemuda yang unggul secara nasional bahkan global. Hadirin yang saya hormati dan banggakan, saya juga berharap agar melalui pelaksanaan kegiatan Side Event Y20 ini di Papua Barat dapat melahirkan rekomendasi dalam hal keberagaman dan inklusi yang merupakan tema pelaksanaan Pre-Summit keempat di kota Manokwari ini. Bahwa kita beraneka ragam dalam etnik, agama, dan budaya, tetapi secara inklusi adalah bertoleransi dan saling menghargai. Semoga dengan berada di Manokwari, para pemuda dapat melihat langsung dan memperoleh banyak inspirasi untuk melahirkan ide serta pemikiran yang juga inklusif bagi kemajuan pembangunan bangsa kita dan juga kemajuan dunia, lebih khusus di daerah atau negara masing-masing. Sekali lagi, saya ucapkan selamat datang di kota Manokwari, selamat melaksanakan kegiatan Side Event Y20 dan selamat menikmati keindahan alam kota Manokwari. Semoga kegiatan ini dapat berjalan dengan lancar dan sukses dalam penyertaan Tuhan yang Maha Kuasa. Saudara-saudara hadirin yang saya hormati dan muliakan, pada kesempatan ini juga saya mengajak seluruh komponen masyarakat di Papua Barat, terutama para pemuda di Manokwari, untuk mendukung pelaksanaan kegiatan ini sebagai bentuk apresiasi dan rasa bangga kita sebagai tuan rumah yang baik dalam mensukseskan seluruh rangkaian kegiatan yang telah dijadwalkan. Selaku Gubernur Papua Barat, saya berpesan kepada para pemuda untuk menjauhkan diri dari narkoba, pergaulan bebas, dan hal-hal negatif yang akan merusak masa depan pemuda itu sendiri. Baik pemuda di Papua Barat, tapi juga pemuda di Indonesia dan para pemuda dari luar negeri yang hadir pada malam hari ini. Mari kita bentuk dan siapkan diri kita menjadi calon pemimpin bagi masa depan bangsa dan dunia. Jadilah pemuda yang berkualitas, penuh integritas, dan visioner bagi diri sendiri, bangsa, dan dunia. Dalam berbagai kesempatan, saya juga berpesan agar mari kita jaga laut, laut jaga kita, mari kita jaga hutan kita, hutan akan jaga kita. Mari kita birukan langit dan hijaukan bumi. Mari kita tinggalkan mata air yang jernih bagi anak cucu kita. Jangan kita tinggalkan air mata bagi mereka di masanya. Akhirnya dengan memanjatkan puji dan syukur kepada Tuhan yang Maha Kuasa, maka pada hari ini Sabtu 18 Juni 2022 pukul jam berapa? Pukul 8.30 waktu Indonesia Timur, saya atas nama Gubernur Papua Barat membuka secara resmi pelaksanaan kegiatan side event Y20 di Kota Manokwari dengan memukul tifa sebanyak 5 kali. Saya undang Bapak Ibu peserta sekalian berdiri sejenak sebagai tanda kita bersama akan membuka kegiatan side event Y20 pada malam hari ini. Ada tifa ya? Kalau tidak ada tifa, saya ajak kita sekalian untuk memberikan aplaus secara bersama-sama. Terima kasih, Tuhan memberkati saudara-saudara sekalian. Saya persilakan duduk kembali. Demikian sambutan tertulis Gubernur Papua Barat yang saya bacakan bagi kita. Salam. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi 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 Om. Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, salam sehat dan selamat malam untuk kita sekalian. Gubernur Papua Barat Komjen Pol Purnawirawan Dr. Andus Paulus Waterpau. Selesai.
Terima kasih Bapak Nathaniel. Kami mohon kesediaan untuk tetap berada di panggung. Kepada Bapak Nathaniel untuk tetap berada di panggung. Kami mohon kesediaannya. Because we're going to proceed to our next agenda. And regarding to the fourth pre-summit of Y20 Indonesia 2022 theme diversity and inclusion, Bapak Nathaniel, on behalf of the Governor of West Papua Province, stated that inclusion is to tolerate and respect one another despite the differences. And hopefully by being here in Manokwari, our youth will be inspired to generate inclusive ideas and views for the development of our nation and the world. To accompany Bapak Nathaniel, as we invite on the stage Chief Regional Police of West Papua Province Irjen Pol Dr. Torna Gogo Sihombing SIK MSI, Pangdam 18 Kaswari Maijen TNI Gabriel Lema Esos, Co-Chair of Y20 Indonesia 2022 Bapak Michael Victor Sianipar, Co-chair of Y20 Indonesia 2022, Ibu Nurul Hidayatul Ummah. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to proceed to our next agenda to officially open the 4th pre-summit of Y20 Indonesia 2022 Diversity and Inclusion in Manokwari, West Papua Province. Each of them will receive the piece of puzzle. They will receive pieces of puzzle and we'll have the opening ceremony together. As our staff passing the pieces of puzzle before we move on to the opening ceremony. All right, seems like everyone's got the pieces of puzzle. Please face yourself to the screen and please direct the piece of puzzle towards the front. Silakan diarahkan puzzle-nya ke arah depan. Please direct the pieces of puzzle towards the front. No, wait. No. I'm the host. You're going to do what I said, okay? Sebentar ya Pak, nanti saya arahin, kita hitung sama-sama. We're going to do the countdown, and after I count down, you do it. Please place the pieces of puzzle to the screen. Kita taruh sama-sama ya Pak, kita hitung sama-sama, 100 hitungan boleh? No? Kebanyakan ya, I'm not going to count down from 100. Okay, Bapak Ibu, are you guys ready? Okay, everyone, this is the moment that we're waiting for. The 4th pre-summit of Y20 Indonesia 2022 Diversity and Inclusion in Manokwari, West Papua Province. Please place the pieces of puzzle to the screen. Silahkan didekatkan ke layar. Boleh dilepas. Semuanya sekarang dilepas. Please release the pieces of puzzle. Boleh dilepas, Pak.
I am an athlete.
A lawyer.
A student.
A musician.
An artist. An activist.
A politician.
Putri Agrowisata Indonesia 2021.
An entrepreneur. We are all
Part of the world
that would be meaningless
without you.
Please give a big round of applause for the 4th pre-summit of Y20 Indonesia 2022 Diversity and Inclusion is officially open in Manokwari, West Papua Province. We kindly ask for our distinguished guests to stay on stage to have a picture together with Bapak Nathaniel. And also would like to invite Ketua Fraksi Otsus DPR Papua Barat, George Karel Dedaida, untuk naik ke atas panggung. Dan kita akan berfoto bersama. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, and all distinguished guests, please welcome and please give a big round of applause for the 4th pre-summit Diversity and Inclusion in Manokwari, West Papua Province. Dan juga kami undang the Chairman of Y20, Bapak Melkias Werinusa, untuk bergabung dan berfoto bersama. And also special guest all the way from Jakarta, Billy Mambrasar. Let's give a big round of applause. Special staff of the President of Republic of Indonesia. Please stand right in the center and please give your best smile because this is the best moment that will be remarked. Dan juga kami undang kepada Bupati Manokwari juga untuk bergabung bersama dan berfoto bersama. Kami persilahkan. Dan juga kami undang Kabinda Papua Barat untuk bergabung dan berfoto bersama. Dan tentunya perwakilan dari Kemenpora untuk naik dan berfoto bersama. Boleh dibuka maskernya Bapak? Okay, you can take off your mask and present your nice and beautiful smile in the beautiful city in West Papua Province, Manokwari. Okay. Is there any special sign? Hand sign? No? Oke, Pak Nathaniel, we would like to see your smile. Pak Nathaniel, kami mau lihat senyum Bapak. Nah, senyum agak lebar sedikit Bapak, boleh? Bapak Nathaniel mungkin ini agak sedikit tegang ya, karena mewakili Bapak Gubernur nih. Okay, thank you so much everyone, thank you. Terima kasih, you may return to your seat, thank you so much and I really hope that you guys will enjoy the rest of our event and discussion that will be held later on tonight. Okay everyone, ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests, I think it's time for loosen up ourselves for a bit. As our warmest greetings to all of you, we would like to present a very special performances. The traditional dance from Papua is about diversity. The dance is really unique because it depicts the uniqueness of Papua. As we know that Papua is the largest island in Indonesia that consists of many sub-tribes, languages, traditional life patterns of people whose live depend on the forest and the sea to meet their needs. So, the energetic movements and chanting music you are going to see before you tells about this extraordinary diversity of tribes, cultures, and languages in the land of Papua. So, without further ado, please welcome the traditional dance from Papua about diversity by Sanggar Tari Papua Melanesia.
Keanekaragaman kultur dan budaya merupakan kekayaan yang tak terhingga. Begitu besar potensi alam kita, harta dan warisan yang wajib kita jaga.
Indonesiaku.
Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause for the amazing Sanggar Tari Papua Melanesia. Amazing, right? We feel that we would like to have a, to move our body, right? Right? You want to move your body as well, right? Amazing, such an energetic, very amazing and remarkable showcase from the young generation from Papua. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now let us witness a video from Provincial Government of West Papua Province.
Selamat datang di Indonesia. Selamat datang di tanah Papua, khususnya Provinsi Papua Barat. Papua Barat adalah sebuah provinsi di Indonesia yang terletak di ujung barat Pulau Papua. Wilayah Papua Barat mencakup semenanjung Domberai, Bomberai, Wandamen, serta Kepulauan Raja Ampat yang terdiri dari 12 kabupaten dan 1 kota. Papua Barat memiliki potensi keanekaragaman hayati dan sumber daya alam hutan Papua yang didiami oleh beberapa kelompok masyarakat adat yang hidup tidak lepas dari hutan dan laut, serta masyarakat di Papua Barat memiliki wilayah adat dengan keberagaman suku, budaya, dan bahasa, serta memiliki destinasi wisata tingkat dunia untuk ekowisata hutan tropis dan laut, serta keindahan yang sangat eksotik. Inilah keindahan kabupaten kota di Provinsi Papua Barat. Kabupaten Kaimana yang dijuluki Kota Senja dan terkenal dengan Teluk Triton dengan kars yang sangat mempesona. Kabupaten Fakfak yang terkenal dengan komoditi unggulan pala. Kabupaten Sorong yang dikenal sebagai penghasil minyak di Indonesia. Kota Sorong juga terkenal dengan kota minyak sejak pengeboran minyak pada tahun 1935. Kabupaten Raja Ampat yang terkenal dengan wisata tingkat dunia untuk ekosistem dan panorama bawah laut. Kabupaten Teluk Wondama dengan sejarah pendaratan Injil dan awal peradaban di tanah Papua. Kabupaten Teluk Bintuni dengan minyak bumi dan gas alam. Kabupaten Manokwari Selatan yang terkenal dengan wisata Gunung Botak dan kakao Ransiki yang menjadi primadona pasar internasional. Kabupaten Pegunungan Arfak dengan keunikan 2 danau yang terletak hingga ketinggian 1953 meter di atas permukaan laut. Kabupaten Sorong Selatan yang dijuluki Kota 1001 Sungai dengan wisata yang terkenal. Kabupaten Maibrat yang terkenal dengan keindahan danau yang indah. Kabupaten Tambrau memiliki potensi wisata, flora fauna yang terus dilestarikan. Dan inilah Manokwari, kota bersejarah di tanah Papua. Manokwari terletak di bagian kepala burung Pulau Papua, memiliki topografi dataran rendah, perbukitan, serta pegunungan yang kaya akan potensi sumber daya alam. Luas Kabupaten Manokwari sekitar 14.268 km persegi. Secara geografis, di sebelah utara Manokwari berbatasan dengan Samudra Pasifik, di sebelah timur berbatasan dengan Kabupaten Teluk Wondama, di sebelah selatan berbatasan dengan Kabupaten Teluk Bintuni, dan di sebelah barat berbatasan dengan Kabupaten Sorong dan Kabupaten Sorong Selatan. Manokwari disebut sebagai kota Injil karena Manokwari merupakan kota sejarah oleh 2 misionaris Jerman, yaitu Karl William Otto dan Johann Gottlob Geisler, yang melakukan perjalanan dari Jerman hingga tiba di Teluk Dore pada 5 Februari 1855 untuk membawa Injil kebenaran bagi tanah Papua. Hingga hari ini, seluruh masyarakat di tanah Papua hidup dalam terang Injil. Kota Manokwari dapat dicapai langsung dari kota-kota di Indonesia melalui transportasi udara maupun laut. Pada daerah dataran pegunungan, Manokwari didiami oleh beberapa kelompok suku. Untuk di daerah dataran pegunungan oleh suku Hatam, Moile, Mea, Sow. Dan untuk di daerah pesisir didiami oleh suku Doreri yang ada di pesisir Teluk Dore, serta suku-suku lain dari tanah Papua telah hidup bersama di kota Manokwari. Kehidupan toleransi antar umat beragama di kota Manokwari sangat luar biasa dan kehidupan sosial masyarakat di kota Manokwari sangat baik. Selamat datang di Manokwari, selamat mengikuti momen internasional.
That was the video from provincial government of West Papua Province. As we can see in the video, such a wonderful place with exotic destinations, and we're so proud to present Indonesia with its cultural diversity and heritage. Without mentioning about the delicious delicacies, beautiful smile from the kind-hearted people that are willing to welcome you in our home country, Indonesia. And we hope you will keep a piece of the beautiful Indonesia in your heart and come back to explore the many, many magnificent sights Indonesia has to offer. Once again, I would like to remind you that you can refill your drinking bottle at the designated spots, or you can ask our staff that will gladly to help you during this event tonight. Bapak Ibu yang terhormat, ladies and gentlemen, as we're moving on to the next agenda, please stay with us for the high-level panel of the 4th Pre-Summit of Y20 Indonesia 2022 Diversity and Inclusion. In our high-level panel, we'll talk about diversity and inclusion in the G20 opportunities for policy reform. And so, we invite our moderator, Y20 Indonesia 2022 Track Chair for Diversity and Inclusion, Disti Winata.
All right, thank you, Shafira, for the introduction. So hello, everyone, distinguished guests, delegates, observers, and all young people around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The spirit of diversity and inclusion lies at the heart of G20 presidency this year. When we talk about better recovery from the pandemic, we need to tackle systemic inequalities, think about socioeconomic effects, and reinstate that no progress and prosperity can be achieved without the inclusion of all people, including our youth. And then with that said, I'd like to welcome you to the high-level panel, Opportunities for Policy Reform, hosted here in beautiful Manokwari, West Papua. My name is Disti. I'm the track chair for diversity and inclusion at the Y20 Indonesia 2022. It is my honor to moderate this panel and introduce you to an incredible lineup of speakers as we analyze ongoing challenges and engage with the delegates and the audience on what other policies are needed. As I introduce the speakers, I'd like to invite the speakers to join me on this stage virtually. First off, Bapak Sandiaga Uno. He's the Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy of the Republic of Indonesia. Welcome, Bapak.
Thank you very much, moderator, for the invitations. And from Garut, West Java, I'd like to thank all participants who are here with us, and let me know when I could start to give my remarks.
Thank you very much. I'd like to also mention other speakers who are joining us here today. So we have Bapak Dian Trian Syahjani as the Indonesia's co-Sherpa of the G20. Welcome, Bapak Trian.
Thank you.
And we also have Ibu Yeni Wahid, the director of the Wahid Foundation, as well as Ibu Jalaswari Pramoda Wardani, representing the Executive Office of the President of Indonesia. So let's start off with Pak Sandi first. So Pak Sandi, I'd like to ask you, you have a difficult portfolio as a minister, managing the creative economy and also tourism, as these are some of the most impacted sectors in the pandemic. And one of your recovery strategies is to create jobs, right? And we want to hear from you, as the industries employ a lot of young people and are based by small to medium enterprises. What policies that you actually introduce for young people to make sure that they continue to get jobs, create jobs, and develop in their career?
Well, if you look at the pandemic that has hit us in the last 2 years, we are forced to recognize the most valuable assets the young generations have in order to overcome the challenges. First is the creativity. We have young minds who have the most innovative approach to problem solve, to troubleshoot the problems that we have within our society, in particular in relations to health, economy, education, environmental sustainability. Secondly is intellectual property. We need to mainstream the discussions on intellectual property, because this is where value creations is going to be established. And the third is entrepreneurship, whereby not only innovations, but daring to take risk and being proactive are key entrepreneurial orientations. So the young programs, the programs for the young generations would revolve around building, stimulating, and enhancing these qualities, these assets in particular for the Gen Z and millennial generations. The orientation is not only getting hired, getting good jobs, but also creating jobs, creating good quality jobs, expand business opportunities, and also empower aspiring SMEs, in particular women-led SMEs. Strengthening the public managements of digital economy and creative products ecosystem. I'm here in Garut, West Java, whereby we see tourism is at the height of its recovery, because in the past, Charlie Chaplin comes to Garut and called this Switzerland Van Java. I've been to Manokwari as well, this beautiful beachfront attractions for culture and tourism. I've swam in the Mansinam Island, whereby we have history also, the first time the Bible lands in the Papua region. So we need to ensure that building and improving competence of human resources revolving around digitizations, innovations, and sustainable business practices will be at the core of the recovery and the program for the young generations. I would call it social entrepreneurship. And I'm very, very delighted seeing Ibu Yeni Wahid. Congratulations, he just won an appreciation and award from the Japanese government. And we have great talents within the Pentahelix. Thank you also for the rest of the panels who are joining me in this high-level discussion. So I'd like to congratulate Y20 for initiating such important and strategic discussions.
Thank you very much, Pak Sandi. And just one question, since our Y20 discussions in the Creative Economy Working Group, actually there's a lot in common with the G20 Tourism Working Group, where we talk about certifications, diversify courses, and also finance for members of vulnerable groups. Can we actually present the Y20 communique to you in July and perhaps align better with the Tourism Working Group to ensure that young people actually continue to be represented in the G20 Bali guidelines and also other outcomes, Pak Sandi?
By all means, we need to engage with you guys because you are 55% of Indonesia's populations. 55% of Indonesian populations are Generation Z and millennials. So if we want to be relevant in the tourism working group, we need to engage with the young minds, the very progressive, creative, innovative minds to provide us with inputs, ideas, and suggestions. We need to adapt. We need to innovate. We need to collaborate. We need to recover together, recover stronger, and most definitely recover better. And then we have a net zero strategies whereby we want to make sure that tourism and creative economy would contribute to the green economies going forward, the energy transitions, the global health architecture, as well as digital transformations. And we need you guys to continue to play a significant and strategic role going forward. So we look forward to your inputs.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much, Pak Sandi, for your remarks and also your commitment to putting young people at the minister's agenda and also in the G20. Before you go, I know you have an upcoming commitment. I would like to invite you and also other speakers in this high-level panel for a group picture. Is it okay?
Yes, please. I don't look that good in this background, but I hope this will create a good group pictures.
I would like to ask the help of the event organizer to make this happen. So I think, could anyone give me a cue if we're ready for a picture time? All right, 2 thumbs up. All right. I guess I'll do the count. All right, everybody ready? Looking at the camera, looking good. All right, here, and 1, 2, 3. All right, one more. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you very much, Pak Sandi, for your attendance and for your time sharing with us at this special night today. And I would like to go to the next speaker. We have Pak Dian Trian Shahjani. So Pak Trian is actually a long advocate and supporter of the Y20. He's Indonesia's G20 co-Sherpa, as well as special advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs on priority issues. Previously, he was a permanent representative of the Republic of Indonesia at the UN, as well as other international organizations. So, Pak Trian, the theme for this year's G20 presidency is Recover Together, Recover Stronger. Given the continued waves of COVID-19, as well as strife around the world, what role can the G20 actually do to bring the world to lead an inclusive and better recovery from this crisis?
Well, thank you very much, moderator. Before I answer the question, just to say hello to Minister Sandiaga and all my old friend, Ibu Yeni Wahid, Ibu Yeni and Ibu Yaleswari, as well as the moderator. And also to thank the co-chairs and organizer of the Y20 for having this meeting, as well as the governors of West Papua and the region of Manokwari. I do apologize. I was supposed to be coming there myself, but some urgent emergency pops up. But I would like to congratulate the organizer to bring the youth of G20 to Manokwari. We have always championed this issue of having meetings all over Indonesia, 24 cities, 438 meetings in the course of 1 year. And that also chimes in very well with the theme that your team on diversity and inclusion. Now, to answer the question, I think like Minister Sandiaga mentioned, COVID-19 has certainly woken us up, and the economic downturn is terribly affecting many countries in the world. And its massive impact has reminded G20 leaders that the global pandemic, economic issue, global tension requires a collaborative efforts. Now, for us, we wanted to make sure that our presidencies bring concrete things into the forefront. As you mentioned, when it comes to COVID-related issue, we wanted to have vaccine distribution and access. We are working on the finance track on issues related to debt, funding, health. I like to give one example, concrete example, through access to COVID-19 tool accelerator or ACT-A initiative. We wanted to speed up vaccine development and manufacture. We wanted to ensure equal and balanced access to vaccines, reduce inequality gap to access vaccine. Now, contrary to many of the pundits, we have done a lot of concrete things. At present now, we are now negotiating a initiative on prevention, preparedness, and response, or PPR. We wanted to make sure that hopefully there's no new pandemic, but if there's a new pandemic, that the world is prepared. And we're coming up with pooling of resources to be prepared for future pandemic. The idea is quite simple, moderator. We wanted to bring the spirit of inclusivity, and we wanted to make sure that no one is left behind in the recovery process. We wanted to place the global health architecture as one of the three main priorities, along with digital transformation and energy transition. Now, for us in island countries, we find it quite interesting that before in G20, the small island nation and the least developed countries is not included in the discussion on climate change and rising tidal wave. With Indonesia, we wanted to make sure they're invited. We wanted to make sure that we're talking about vulnerable groups, small and medium enterprise, women, youth, disabilities, and as Minister Sandiago mentioned, also creative economy and tourism. This is some of the things that I can go on and on, but I will not bore all of you. But one thing we want to make sure that there is an exit strategy from the pandemic. Difficult as it may be, but our finance people, finance track, Sherpa track is working on it to address this issue of having an exit strategy from the pandemic. It has to be exclusive. It's inclusive. It's not supposed to be a rich man's club. G20 is for everyone, in particular Y20. I hope that answered the question.
That's great, Patrian. Thank you very much. And when you talked about exit strategy, that means it has to come with actionable policy proposals. As your role as a co-Sherpa, you expected a lot of G20 engagement and working groups to come up with these actionable proposals. So as young people, what can we do to bring these policy proposals, not just a piece of paper, but actually to implementation and have our heads of states walk the talk?
A good question, Disti. President Joko Widodo made a clear instruction to us all in the Sherpa and the finance track. He doesn't want to have words or paragraph of merely sentences, long sentences that sometimes will have trouble understanding. He wanted to have concrete deliverables in the form of projects, programs, initiatives. And this is where I think the youth can play an important part as catalyst for action for the G20 leaders. You can come up with ideas on digital transformation, on sustainable living. These two are important agendas under the G20. You can raise awareness, encourage discussion, initiate programs and collaboration. I was quite surprised just this morning. I think you have been doing some planting of trees and releasing turtle. I think this is a simple example. And now it needs to be put on social media. It needs to be portrayed to all over the world that this is what we are trying to do. I'll give a simple example also. We have a youth organization under our G20 Energy Development Working Group. There is a youth called, my friend Zagi is a 24-year-old youth. He created the Society of Renewable Energy. And the idea is that there are more than 40 chapters all around university in Indonesia. They have planted, I don't know if that's the right word or not, solar panels in 10 villages in 2021, and they're now working on on more than 45 villages in 2022 in all the islands of Indonesia. This is where the youth can make a difference. And I understand that the Y20 white paper also has 4 priority areas: employment, digital, sustainable planet, and diversity and inclusion. Now, the question is how to translate that into concrete program and project. The youth should lead with concrete things. And I do believe in our old principle of gotong royong, which clearly means that we should work together. I might be very cliche. Ibu Yani is laughing at me, I think. But I really believe on the spirit of solidarity and gotong royong. I don't know whether that chimes in with other colleagues. So you should be heard by the leaders, by example. I think I'll leave it at that.
That's great. Thanks for the advice. We'll carry that throughout our discussions. Thank you, Patrian. And now I'd like to move on to Ibu Yeni Wahid. So Bu Yeni Wahid is a social entrepreneur, a political activist, as well as a Harvard graduate with a mission to empower many marginalized women through the Wahid Foundation. And she also worked with the UN Women behind this initiative called the Peace Village to create social cohesion in the society through female and economic empowerment, as well as giving training to prevent violent extremism. Welcome, Bu Yeni, to the 4th Pre-Summit of Y20 Indonesia. The first question I have for you is that throughout the world, there have been many initiatives to help communities to resolve conflicts, build mutual understanding, but sometimes it risks of a concern that these initiatives may not be sustainable and they lack the steady flow of resources. Based on your experience, what are some of the ways to ensure that these initiatives such as yours are sustained over time, both in terms of material resources as well as the buy-in of key stakeholders?
Thank you, Mbak Moderator. First, allow me to say hello to my good friend, Pak Triansha Dani, and also Mbak Jalaswari, and also Pak Sandi, who I believe have left, and also to all of the other friends who are present there, Pak Regent Manokwari and other friends, and also all the young people, the leaders of the future who are also present there. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Y20 for organizing such a great event, and I think giving the youth voice and then allowing them a space so that their opinions can be heard is very important, because they are the engine of not just of the future but also of today's development. And I think what the previous speakers have already said is that the world is dependent also upon the initiatives of the youth, and young people today, they also face many challenges in their personal lives, in their everyday lives. And one of them, of course, like what you mentioned before, is the issue of social cohesion, violence in the communities, and also in school. In some countries, we saw many mass shootings happen, and schools should be a safe environment where kids can learn safely and just focus on getting knowledge, to further the education. But we see many schools are not being the safe harbor that it should be. And also violence in the society, we see that in many areas, even in our own societies. So these are one of the challenges that the young people are also facing. And I'm very encouraged also that many young people are actually taking actions, not just being a passive victims, of these unfortunate developments in our society, but taking initiatives. And there are many initiatives out there, and one of them, like what you mentioned before, is our Peace Village initiative and Peace School initiatives, in which we try to get young people, high schoolers, to try to create a safe environment for them to learn diversity, to make sure that diverse opinions are being heard, that it's safe for them to exchange opinions about many even sensitive issues in their lives. For these kind of programs to be sustainable, of course, we need to support them. But on the other hand, I'm actually quite encouraged by the creativity of young people, because they have many abilities that many people of the older generations do not have. They have the ability to access resources that we do not have, that I'm claiming to be an older generation here. I hope one of you would be kind enough to say, no, you're not part of that generations, but never mind. Anyway, so what we're seeing is actually creativity is in terms of using resources that are available, using social medias, using other kinds of platforms, and then getting people who share the same values and same convictions and same objectives to get together. And I think what drives young people today is very, very noble. Young people today are driven by, not just by, I think older generations might be driven by the need to be out there and to get praise for their efforts. But young people now are more collectively conscious. They think about the community more. They help one another. They support each other. And I think this is something that even the older generations actually have to learn from them. And so don't be discouraged if you feel that there's lack of resources when it comes to initiatives. Just do whatever it needs to be done. And once you get the ideas out there and you're consistent about it, you create traction. When you create tractions, there will be attention from much needed partners to continue with the works. That would be my suggestion. Just be consistent.
That's great. Just sharing your values, promote them to the public, and start a conversation. That's when these good initiatives will bubble up. So that's excellent, Bu Yeni. Thank you very much. And another question I have for you is that you have had a wide-ranging career, and you're deeply engaged with issues such as social inclusion as well as peace building. Can you walk us through what are some of the advantages as well as drawbacks in working with civil society as well as the government when it comes to promoting social change?
Yes. So there are areas that only government actors can go in, and there are areas that's almost forbidden for government actors, because then it will just they don't have the credibility, to talk to the community leaders, for example. So this is where the community, the CSOs, the NGOs play a big part. And I think in societies like Indonesia, we're very lucky because we've got cooperations between government actors and also non-government actors. And also we see challenges that many of the challenges we face today, especially in the issues of violence, for example, in the past, or human rights violations, for example. In the past, it's very black and white. It almost always carried out by government actors. But now we see also that non-government actors are able to do heavy crimes, for example. So cooperations between these two actors are very, very important. And I think the youth today faces a challenge that, again, like what I mentioned, faces a challenge that many people of the older generations do not have because of the pressures of the social media, the advantage of being connected to one another, the advantage of being on social media actually puts also a pressure on them. Youth today faces this immense pressure to be successful now, to succeed in every sector of their lives. And that is very difficult. That is almost unrealistic, objective to have in life. And also that the youth today have this pressure on themselves, also created by the society, because they put so much emphasis on materialism. That your success is measured by what you've got in life, by what you can achieve in terms of your financial level, by what car you drive, by what models you date, and etc. And it's just unrealistic. And I think this is one area in which we have to also raise awareness that we have to help the youth to overcome the mental health issues, of course, that more and more youth are facing today. And I think this is something that most government are actually not very aware of. And so this is where non-government actors can play a big role in creating awareness, in getting the attention to these issues. And I think this is where the young people of today can play a tremendous role to educate the society.
That's great. Thanks to you for sharing your experience, Ibu Yeni. And I'd like to remind the audience here joining us in Manokwari, as well as virtually through Zoom and YouTube, that to please send in your questions, and we will have the opportunity to ask this incredible lineup of speakers some questions. So next up, I'd like to focus to Ibu Jaleswari Pramoda Wardani, or Ibu Dani for short. She is a renowned academic, activist, and a bureaucrat presently serving as the Deputy Chief of Staff for Analysis and Oversight on strategic issues such as politics, law, defense, security, and human rights affairs at the Executive Office of the President of Republic of Indonesia. Welcome, Bu Dani. My first question to you is that your role oversees a lot of strategic issues, and these are all quite important stuff. So as a government official, what advice do you suggest to our young people and our Y20 delegates to ensure that these policy recommendations are not just actionable, as Pak Trian has said, but also grounded in human rights principles?
Okay, thank you, Mbak Disti. As a democracy, Indonesia strongly upholds human rights as universal values for its people, as stated in both the Constitution of the Republic of Indonesia and its ideology Pancasila, which embodies the ideal, instrumental, and practical dimensions of human rights. At the domestic and practical regulatory levels, Indonesia's moral and legal responsibility in respecting and implementing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 is reflected in the formulation of Law Number 39 of 1999 on human rights. Indonesia has also recently issued Presidential Regulation Number 43 of 2021 on the National Action Plan for Human Rights, or RANHAM, as a means of human rights mainstreaming, as well as ratifying most of the major international human rights instruments, inter alia, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, or ICPCPR, Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD, in the context of regulation and policies pursuant to the prevailing laws and regulations. The government of Indonesia is obligated to ensure that the substantive element of regulation and public policy is formulated based on humanitarian principles and reflects proportional protection and respect for human rights, as well as the dignity of every citizen and resident of Indonesia. So the question would be, how can you contribute to this? I'm convinced that there are multiple ways that the young generation can do to assure that regulations, public policies, and policy recommendations are always in line with human rights principles. First, to understand the spirit of unity, justice, and the principle of human rights and its protection. This is particularly important because by having sufficient knowledge of the matter, the young generation can further contribute to the nation's development and safeguard the interests of its people. Second, to be critical and actively advocating towards the formulation of public policies. I encourage the young generation to be confident in delivering policy recommendation or even criticism supported by profound analysis, because constructive criticism is not only part of the democratic process, but also a reminder for the government to continue its effort in bringing the nation to prosper. And third, this is essential for the young generation to consistently voice the importance of human rights protection and critical thinking as a manifestation of the young generation contribution in the development through various platforms such as social media to spread awareness and inspire greater audiences. Lastly, I would like to reiterate the expression of Indonesia's founding father, Soekarno, saying, "Give me 1,000 old men, I will surely pull Mount Semeru for its roots. Give me 10 young people, and I will surely shake the world." I purposely mention this as a reflection for all of us about how powerful the capacity of the young generation is. Young generation are the conceptors, innovators, and executors of nation development represented in various roles and professions. What young people do today is indeed our hope for the future.
Thank you, Ibu Dani. And before I go to the next question to Ibu Dani, I would like to remind the audience once again that you have the opportunity to ask these panelists questions. So get ready. And this also goes to online audiences tuning in through Zoom as well as YouTube. So my next question to you, Ibu Dani, you focus your work a lot on sustainable development, especially one of the regions they oversee is here in West Papua. I would like to ask you two questions actually. Why do you consider young people a priority to achieve sustainable development? And the second question is, what does sustainable development look like to you?
Okay, good question. A key part of Indonesia's projected economic strength is demographics, as we are in the middle of our demographics dividend, where the share of young working age people is greater than the share of non-working age people. So, instrumentally speaking, youth is key to the development of any country or region. Based on data from our statistic agency, the province of Papua and West Papua have the largest share of young people relative to their population compared to anywhere else in Indonesia. They are the youngest of our province and hence have the most potential to grow. Human capital development have been a focus of President Joko Widodo second term through measures such as the passage of the omnibus job creation law to ensure that the youth are properly empowered with the right opportunities. Beyond the demographics, we also recognize that the youth of Papua have an exceptional ability to inspire. Hence, they have been a cornerstone of the president's approach to developing Papua. Recently, the president has established the Papua Youth Creative Hub in Jayapura to act as a hub for Papuan talents and to strengthen the local innovation ecosystem for solving local issues. Papua itself is a melting pot of different beliefs and cultures. It is a microcosm of Indonesia. This is land where customs and traditions will have a special place in daily life. This unique dynamic is given the utmost consideration when it comes to developing Papua. Sustainable development in Papua works when local leaders from all walks of life are empowered to make the decisions needed. Such is the spirit of the revised special autonomy law we have recently passed the province of Papua and West Papua. The special autonomy has resulted in innovations such as the passage of special regional regulation, Regulation 10, 2019 by the West Papuan provincial government that puts sustainable development at the heart of provincial development.
That's great. So good to hear so many innovations here in West Papua as well as across Indonesia. And when we talk about developing policies in an inclusive manner, it really comes down to the full and meaningful participation of young people. And most importantly, getting these people to discuss the policies in which they will serve. So what are your strategies that you can share with our Y20 delegates to ensure that these policies are, thinking about those furthest left behind and getting them involved meaningfully in the policy-making processes?
Thank you, Madisti. From my experience, tackling the mentioned issues requires collaboration from various stakeholders to create some substantial and meaningful change. One of KSP main tasks is to facilitate Such cooperation, bridging, and facilitating communication between various stakeholders and copting a whole of government approach to solve the most pressing issues, challenging issues in Indonesia. A case study I would like to present is KSP recent role in the bottlenecking the passage of the law on sexual violence crimes, which had been stuck in deliberation for over 8 years. The alarming rise in sexual violence crime in Indonesia during the pandemic was what made passage of this law of top priority. Under instruction from the President, we created a government task force last year to accelerate the passage of said bill. It was only with the close collaboration between the three branches of government, civil society, academies, and religious groups that we were able to pass this law. KSP worked tirelessly to facilitate the synergies between all parties, and said synergy and a multi-layer movement is needed to fight intolerance, racism, and discrimination at its root. The enactment of the law of sexual violence crimes is historic because it finally gave a comprehensive legal umbrella to protect the people, taking a victim-first approach and informed by the numerous consultation with all relevant stakeholders. For instance, no acts of sexual exploitation by seduction, deceit, using false identities, and those who abuse position of power or trust are given additional legal penalties. At the end of the day, breakthroughs were made possible because the people and community were prioritized and included at every stage of the deliberation. This way, hopefully, we'll continue to achieve the same success in eliminating other forms of discrimination and intolerance from the Republic of Indonesia.
Those are excellent insights. Thank you, Ibu Dani. I'd like to open the floor for our audience here joining in Manokwari. If you have any questions, please do so and raise your hand. These are excellent speakers, and we only have this rare opportunity to ask them directly, so please make sure that you use this opportunity. Or, oh, there's one at the back.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Christine Nebore, representative from Sorong City, West Papua, and also part of town hall participants within this event. I would like to ask you a question. But first, I would like to bring you a fact that even here in the region of West Papua, our local youth are not or even rarely being involved in the process of the decision making of the policies, especially public policies. Well, actually, civic engagement is the most urgent needs that we have to involve, especially for the youth. I fight for 3 years as a former vice president of West Papuan Children Forum to involve youth and children in the regional development, but we were never being invited or even involved in the process of decision making. And we never have the access to gain information regarding the input and outputs of those policies. So how we call this diversity and inclusion if we didn't involve an equal distributions of involvement of the youth towards the decision making in the process of the policy making itself? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for asking your question. Well, where this is a start that, the diversity and inclusion is a new priority area, perhaps it can go really a long way because it's a long-term process. And I'm glad that you raised this question and you share your experience, as it reminds us that our job is never complete and the road ahead is very long. Maybe I would like to open this to our panelists. Perhaps do you have any advice for our audience right here and how they can gain more opportunities and be aware of these opportunities, not just in the regional level, but also national and global level.
May I start?
Yes, go ahead, Bu Yeni.
Okay, I'm just going to give you the bad news and also the good news. The bad news is no one is going to invite you to sit on the table. That's just the bad news. You have to make your way up to the table. You have to fight for it. You have to make your voices heard. That's the bad news. Yeah. But the good news is you have the power to make it happen. How to do it? The way to do it is to form alliances, to be active, to learn about the issues of today, to learn about things that most politicians are sensitive about, and then putting a pressure on them. That's the way to get you invited to the table, and then be invited to be part of the dialogues to form a policy. That's the way to do it. Because I think most people are very are not going to look beyond their own limitations of what they've got. So I think it's going to be very rare unless the leaders are very enlightened and realize that the voices of the youth are important. But you've got your opportunities as well. Leaders who are elected, usually they have the interest of being re-elected or being elected. That's when you have the opportunities to push through with your agendas of the youth's today's agenda of the youth. And that's when you can make sure that your voices are being heard. So don't ask for a handout. Go get your rights yourself. Fight for it, because no one is going to give it to you, but you have the power to do it yourself, and be proud when you can do it yourself.
Can I add?
Thank you for this resonating advice, Bu Yeni. I'd like to, I heard that there is a question online on Zoom. I'd like to invite Hiroaki Sagawa to share your question with the panelists here. Perhaps if you'd like to share your question directly by opening your microphone as well, also your camera, go ahead, Hiroaki.
Yes, thank you very much, other distinguished guests and the great panelists. Here, I'm a Japanese delegate for the Diversity and Inclusion Track. So I'd like to ask a question about the distinguished Sherpa about how this Y20 process, Y20 communique will be taken into account into the real G20 summit process. I think it would be a question about how youth engagement will be taken account into their policy making process. So I would just ask a question: what would be a concrete vision about how this Y20 communication we are making will be considered in the policy making process? Thank you very much.
Or shall I
Thank you, Hiroaki.
answer the question?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Patrian.
Okay, because it was addressed to me. Domo arigatou gozaimasu, Hiroiki Sagawa. Thank you very much for the question. But before answering your question, I just would like to add what Ibu Yeni on the previous question. I think the youth could be heard in many ways. We are a democracy. We are the third largest democracy in Indonesia. For instance, you have elected officials that are going into the parliament, the DPD, into the local parliament. You have to make your voice heard, like Bu Yeni mentioned. I give the example in my case in Komisi 1, the first commission of the DPR. We have a very intelligent, smart, young Papuan, always asking good questions. And you can also, just like in the United States, in other countries also, you can write a letter to him. Please have our views heard also, because he is representing the constituencies everywhere. The second way is to use communication skill. The youth is the master of that. I'll give an example. When I was ambassador in New York for Indonesia, I have 4 young students from Ivy League College helping me with Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And I gather all the questions, all the views over there to formulate my policies in terms of presenting Indonesia's views, because it's not easy being an ambassador presenting 277 million Indonesians. So I make sure that there are, but if you don't voice that, like Bu Yeni mentioned, it's not going to go anywhere. And to quote John Bernard Shaw, I just would like to also have a quotation, because it's not only the representative of the Minister of Youth only that can have a quotation. George Bernard Shaw mentioned that a lifespan making mistakes is not only more honorable, but more useful than a lifespan doing nothing. And I also would like to use a quotation from the land of Papua. Yogotak hubuluk motok hanorogo. Pardon my pronunciation, my Papuan brothers and sisters, but I just would like to mention to all you, this is a very philosophical and deep meaning. Loosely translated, tomorrow must be better than today. This is a Papuan proverb. Tomorrow must be better than today. Yogotak hubuluk motok hanorogo. Now, to answer Hiroaki question, the outcome of the Y20 will, of course, just like the outcome of the L20, W20, the working group, the ministerial statement, will be part and parcel of the whole document of the Leaders' Declaration. So it's going to be annexed to all those things. But aside from that, also, if there are paragraphs or there are important points, we Sherpa will also insert it. Of course, not the whole thing can be put in the Leaders' Declaration, because as you know, Hiroaki-san, that we have 10 working group, we have 10 engagement group, and if all the papers are, all the outcomes, the joint statement, the communique is put together in the Leaders' Declaration as it is, we're going to have a 50 or 100 pages Leader Declaration. So we wanted to have a very short Leaders' Declaration, and it's going to be annexed. And there might be some paragraphs that are important to the youth that we could also insert in the Leaders' Declaration. And now that's your job, colleagues, dear friends, to try to find what is really punchy, what is really meaningful, that you consider meaningful, because I know you're discussing a lot of issues in the course of this whole year. But you have to really find out what kind of things that are punchy, that are, I shouldn't use this, this term, but sexy, that people will be looking at. So, but this is what I want to convey. So please do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrian. So we've heard from Bu Yeni, Patrian. Perhaps I'd like to forward this question to Bu Dani as well. Bu Dani, do you have any thoughts?
Ya, Mbak Disti, I would like to answer the question from Sorong in bahasa. Tadi ada adik-adik yang menanyakan bahwa pelibatan terhadap pembuatan policy making dan lain-lain itu tidak pernah dilibatkan. Saya rasa berdasarkan apa yang telah kami lakukan di kantor staf Presiden, kita telah melakukan beberapa diskusi dengan adik-adik muda dari Papua. Kami membuka diri kepada audiensi, diskusi-diskusi yang dilakukan untuk memberikan masukan terkait dengan kebijakan-kebijakan yang pemerintah lakukan di Papua. Jadi mekanisme itu sudah tersedia, tinggal adik-adik dari Papua memanfaatkan ini. Itu bisa saja melalui jalur-jalur dari kantor staf Presiden maupun kementerian lembaga, dan tentu saja melalui kolega saya Mas Billy Mahbrasar, yang selama ini kami selalu berkolaborasi. Jadi intinya kita tetap akan melakukan kolaborasi dalam melakukan kerja-kerja, entah itu kerja di tingkat implementasi kebijakan maupun pembuatan kebijakan itu sendiri. Itu masukan-masukan dari kawan-kawan muda Papua itu sangat kami perhatikan dan menjadi masukan yang sangat berharga. Terima kasih.
Thank you. And since Bu Dani shared her remarks in Indonesian, I'd like to recap that and share that in English. Hopefully that's okay with you, Bu. So Bu Dani briefly mentioned that there's a need for young people to collaborate, and we have young leaders sitting with us today in the hall in Manokwari. So please don't hesitate to reach out to them, share your experience, share those issues, perhaps find commonalities and find your values together to start somewhere, because diversity and inclusion couldn't go together without this collaboration. And with that, so yeah, that's a very lively discussion we just had. Please give me a round of applause to these spiritual speakers once again for their insights and experience. And I'm sure from what you've heard today, there are many other lessons that will go a long way, not just for the Y20 delegates, but also all young people tuning into this talk show. One thing that history has taught us is that social change really occurs when young people are not really seen as the subject, rather as key actors. And because it comes down to our interests and our involvement that are based on the fact that we have the power, we have the will, we have the knowledge and expertise to promote inclusive reform for diversity and inclusion. Thank you very much once again to our panelists and the audience for the active participation, online and offline. And with that said, over to you, Vira.
Thank you, Disti. Such a great and interesting discussion and very profound to hear each perspective from our each panelist. You may return to your seat. And as a young generation, it's really important to have a high hope and to get the opportunities for policy reform regarding diversity and inclusion, especially in the G20. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go on to our next agenda, which is first talk show for the 4th pre-summit of Y20 Indonesia 2022, I would like to show you a video that was showcasing of East Indonesia culture and heritage. Please enjoy. right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the beauty of Eastern of Indonesia. And now let's shift our focus to our next agenda, which is the first talk show of the third pre-summit of Y20 Indonesia 2022. The first theme revolves around expanding and maintaining access to quality education. Disruptions to education systems during the pandemic have revealed yawning inequalities between systems that have the resources to continue providing quality education for students and those which do not, as well as the sizable gulf between students who can turn to digital tools to continue their education and those whose learning was more severely hindered, if not outright stopped. The first talk show will focus on highlighting detailed case studies of successful and unsuccessful initiatives on education and the creative economy in order to strengthen the discussions and enable to exchange of diverse ideas. The talk show will feature a representative panel of speakers who have experience on the sub-themes at the local, national, and international levels, as well as across private, non-profit, and government sectors. Here, we'll talk about inclusive education. And so we invite our moderator, Y20 Indonesian Delegate for Diversity and Inclusion, M. Abdullah Shukri.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Hello guys, behind. Hai. Halo. Oke, hidup pemuda Indonesia. Siap. I hope you have still powerful. Okay, today this is the first discussion for Y20, the talk show, and of course, we will discuss about one of the most important topics in G20 and Y20 2022 Indonesia, and it is education. Why it is important? Because if we are discussing about every problem in the world, in Indonesia, for example, the economic crisis, the human resources crisis, or the inequality, will be finding the same solution. We will find the same answer to tackle the problem, and it is education. That's why, first of all, I will introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Abdullah Shukri. I'm the Indonesian delegate for Diversity and Inclusion track. And also, I'm the General Chairman of Indonesian Muslim Student Movement, or in Bahasa Pergerakan Mahasiswa Islam Indonesia. And of course, here I'm not alone. I will be inviting the prominent speakers. And we have 4 speakers tonight. The first one, Stefina Yuli. She is the Chief Business Officer at Kipin. And Stefina is Yale graduate, former BCG consultant, and as well as a published children's author and former broadcast journalist. She began her career in Boston Consulting Group, working with large Indonesian companies and state-owned enterprises to develop digital strategies. And she is also with Kipin. She has the unique opportunity to combine her business leadership with her love for digital transformation and social impact. And Kipin is a disruptive edutech solution backed by MIT and Cominfo awards that help millions of teachers, students, and schools nationwide learn even where there is no internet. Stefina Yuli. Please give big applause to her. How are you, Stefina?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me here.
First time to
Papua.
Manokwari?
Yeah.
Okay. And the second speaker, he's very famous here because he's inspiring young people from Papua. Billy Mambrasar. He is an alumni of Y20 Professional Fellowship 2015, and in 2019 he was appointed as one of the President Jokowi's presidential expert staff due to his experience in the social development. And Billy is also the founder of Kitong Bisa, a foundation which established several learning centers in Papua and Papua Barat provinces, educating approximately 500 students annually with more than 500 alumni. And also, Billy is appointed to be the Indonesian SDGs ambassador, advocating the youth participation to help Indonesia improve their SDGs. Okay, hello Billy.
Hello.
Actually,
welcome to Papua.
Okay. Exactly where are you from? From Papua? Which city are you from?
I was born in an island, approximately a couple of meters away, actually very close. That is called Yapen Island. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a beautiful island. Probably the next summit should be in that island.
Mujab, the next summit. Okay. And this is the special one. The third speaker. O'Neil Masamba. So she is a dual citizen from France and the Republic of Congo, admitted to the practice as an attorney in the state of New York and acting as the 2022 World Bank Group Youth Summit Manager. And O'Neil has over 5 years of experience as an infrastructure attorney. She works in the public-private partnership group of the World Bank, where she analyzes the practices and legal framework that apply to the procurement of major infrastructure projects in 140 economies. Okay, hello, O'Neil.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
I heard you fly directly from the DC.
Yes, and it was a long flight, but I'm really glad to be here, and thank you very much to everyone. Everyone was very welcoming. So.
And how many hours was that, the flight?
28 hours.
28 hours, wow.
So I really wanted to be here.
Okay. Okay, and the last speakers, last but not least, of course, Dr. Iwan Syahril. He is joining us virtually. Is he here? Can you show
Yes,
the
I'm here.
video?
Hello.
Not yet? Okay, hello, Pak Iwan Syahril. He is the chair of G20 Education Working Group, and also he is the General Director of Teacher and Education Staff at the Ministry of Education Republic of Indonesia. Hello, Pak Iwan.
Hi,
I wish
everyone.
you were here to eat pepeda together, actually.
I wish I were there too, especially my good friend Billy. He's been doing extremely well. So proud, so inspiring, and also Stefina and O'Neil. I wish I was there with you today, but I hope all is good and well, and we can have a very good discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Iwan. And why diversity and inclusion? As you know that Indonesia is a big country, big nation with more than 270 million people, more than 17 islands, and almost 1,000 ethnic groups with different languages, 6 official religions, and more than 100 traditional belief in Indonesia. So that's why the government of Indonesia, they want to share the experience to the world. What is the unique value of like Pancasila, Gotong Royong, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, to inspire the world how we manage this diverse nation like Indonesia. So the first question for Stefina. I call you Stefina or Yuli?
Stefina is fine.
Stefina,
Steffi is
okay.
fine too.
So, Sevina, one of the major challenges when it comes to digitally driven education is the fact that in many countries, digital infrastructure is not equal, both in terms of physical infrastructure and people skill in using digital tools. So maybe you can share us your experience in Kipin.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I hope everyone is still awake. My name is Steffi from Kipin. So I think you're absolutely right. Digital infrastructure is very different when it comes to urban and rural. I think we all know urban is well connected to digital learning, but I actually wanted to give an example from rural, and if you can share the slide
You
up
can
here.
show the PowerPoint.
Yeah, this is a very real example of what rural can look like in Indonesia, right? So this is Pak Unu from Sarawai in West Kalimantan. He shared a picture of the one that you see there of the two students under a tarp. And essentially they're taking a national computer assessment because that's the only place that they can get internet. And so he really needed a solution today. This is what a digital infrastructure issue looks like in reality, you know.
Okay.
So he purchased our Kipin, and it was delivered first by boat, and then by a speedboat, and then hand carried up to the school in order to get to the school. Yeah.
Okay, so what impacts do you see that digitalized education system brings to students? Are there any significant differences between urban and rural area?
Yeah. So I think like this example, for example, there's sort of a few key challenges that that are faced, right? So 3 key challenges. I would say the first one is obviously internet is not great. Maybe we can still improve. It's still a challenge for many areas. And essentially what we do is we take something we call a bridging technology. So even when you don't have internet, you can turn something like this on. This is our Kipin device, the one that I showed in Pak Unu's example. And you can use your smartphone to connect to this even when you don't have internet. So essentially you take your smartphone, you can download all of the content that you need to learn, Kemdikbud content, MOE curriculum content, completely without internet. The other challenge I think that is really faced is digital literacy. This is something talked about in a lot of reports with the World Bank, UNICEF, everyone talks about this. The issue over there is that, digital infrastructure is a long-term game. It takes a long time to build, but digital literacy is something that we need today. Every day that someone does not have digital literacy is a day that they are further left behind. And so this is why we really come in to solve this particular issue. Just turn it on, 3 minutes and a school can go digital. And this is the important thing here is we try to meet the user where their digital literacy is at today. Yeah.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah.
So, and in your view, what does it take to ensure that quality and inclusive education are standardized and accessible to any students?
Yeah. I think just, the two challenges just now that I was kind of highlighting, we just need a solution that meets the user where they're at today. I think that's the simplest thing that we can do. We need solutions that can really bridge to them without waiting for digital infrastructure to be ready, because we can actually bridge to digital literacy today. And the last point probably that I will just add is it's also important, affordability. I think that is very key in Indonesia, but also in many other countries. If you can just go one more slide, I think this is something that I just want to leave for us to think about. In terms of affordability, we all want to go towards digital learning, but if you don't have money, and sometimes you get left behind in that race towards digital learning. And so we need to shift our mindset to find models where students can learn for free. And the great news is that technology exists and those solutions exist. So yeah, I think that's my 2 cents.
Okay. That's cool. Thank you for sharing your experience and your opinion. So move to Billy. I still remember 3 years ago, the president announced you as the one of 7 special staff to the president from Millennial. Okay, Billy, as a young person who is involved at very high level of government, can you share some insight on what unique challenges and opportunities young leaders, such as yourself, have encountered while working with government to improve education policies and practices?
Thank you very much for the question. First of all, actually, I'm not the only great Papuan youth. As you can see, banyak anak-anak muda Papua di belakang sana yang hebat-hebat. A lot
Okay.
of tepuk tangan. And I know most of the work as well. There are someone who make T-shirts for living, like a company. Some make food catering online. Some works as a farmers using digital and stuff like that. So I think my presence in the national level kind of open up the perspective and the view of the Indonesian people about Papua and Papuan being the province in the most eastern part of the country with the lowest human development index, with the lowest education accessibility, the poorest province of the country. But then the president, when president selected me, I'm kind of like being a bridge that gives more opportunity for the Indonesian youth from the outer provinces to be able to play at the same stage or the same level. So the challenges, I think, is people might think that I've broken all the challenges and stuff like that, but to be honest, I'm still facing stereotypes. Like, for instance, the questions were, why are you selected as one of the special staff? And the answers of from a couple of people like, oh, probably because he's Papuan. Maybe it's just a representative and stuff like that. So I think breaking down the stereotype and prejudice that we can actually do it is something that I am still working hard. And I hope that after I win this challenge, then anak-anak muda Papua lain yang nanti akan mengikuti jejak saya to be someone in this level will not face that challenge. And about my critical role is actually to tell the president the situations in the outer provinces from a unique language that is understandable by people who might not having that experience. For instance, I come from an island called Yapen Island, and when I was a kid, until my junior high school, we didn't have electricity in my home. It's just a couple of kilometers away from this place. I didn't have that light for reading. It was a candle. Yeah, I used candle for readings. I didn't have enough money to pay for my tuition fee and stuff like that. So having experienced that, now when I work with the president or even the education minister, I could share the story. I could tell them how does it feel like to not having the internet connections, for instance, or to walk thousands of kilometers away to get to the schools, or being in a school without a teacher. By having that feeling, having that empathy, I call it empathetic public policy making, in which in these nations of 270 million people, that's something that is critical and importantly needed by public policy makers.
Okay, thank you, Billy. So nice. When we talk about transferable skills, it is naturally important that learners are equipped with the right capabilities to make them competitive in whatever industries they choose to work in. So can you tell us some of your experiences in fostering critical thinking and a desire to keep learning among youth you have worked? And what have you found to be good practices when attempting to help learners become adaptable?
Thank you for that question. That's the priority of our Minister of the Education, that we want to have Indonesian generations with HOTS. What is HOTS? That is high order thinking skill. And that's what we do in my foundations. You can see the picture just at my back. I was working with the students from this area called Yahukimo. That's in the higher mountainous area. And when I gave questions, I want them to answer with not just explaining things as a what, but how and why. Like, for instance, when explaining about why do we have to preserve the sea and the mountains, it's not just explaining the importance of preserving it, but make them explaining why the sea and the mountain and the trees are very important to preserve. And that takes time for me to have interactions with them. And that the picture of my dad. My dad has been a teacher for 41 years, and he teach in the Christian schools. he's not a public servant, so he has a very humble salary, kind of like, low salary, stuff like that. But my dad taught me to be a teacher, and that's what I've been doing as a teacher, is that spending intimate time with the students to have this intimate conversation. And we have to be patient to make them explain what is it, not us explaining things to them. So it's called conversational way of teaching and facilitating way of teaching. And I think that's something that should be possessed by all the teachers in this country.
Okay, thank you, Billy. And we also want to know your organization, Kitong Bisa. Now, your organization currently has 7 learning centers in Papua, and the goal is to equip local Papuan youth to be successful, receive better education, and move out the poverty line. So, in your opinion, what role do non-formal learning centers like Kitong Bisa have in promoting lifelong learning for young people?
Thank you so much. What we teach in my foundations is to make the Papuan youth believe that they can be the best of themselves. Dan mungkin teman-teman setuju ya, bahwa kita semua ini bisa, kita semuanya hebat, tapi kadang-kadang kita punya rasa percaya diri nih. Bikin, kalau saya berdiri, tadi jujur mau maju ke depan saja, I was very nervous, like, can I really deliver that message well? Dan rasa-rasa itu muncul karena stereotype, prejudice, rasa inferiority complex, and that's what we do in Kitong Bisa Learning Centers, is to teach the students to believe that they can do things, that they can achieve, and that they're equal with the other Indonesian youth. And I have a very short TikTok video, just 30 seconds, of my interactions with one of the students. Karena bagi saya mengajar, teaching is very fun, and that's what I want to do for life. Like traveling around the villages in the country, interacting with the students, and make them believe that they can be the best. So this is one of the example of how I teach, if it is possible.
Okay, so please show the video, just short video.
So a bit of the background of this video is that I want to motivate them to speak English, because in Papua we have hundreds of languages. Believe or not, saya dengan Pak Kapolda, me and the governor, the Pasekda, and the head of the representative, we speak in different languages. We come from different tribes. We speak in different languages, and then we have to learn Indonesian in the formal school. So it's kind of like shifting from my father tribal language to Indonesian, and then we want to travel to the world, we have to learn English. And I want these Papuan students to travel the world and beat it, and make Indonesian proud of them. So I teach English, and
Okay, is the video ready? So we can...
Video ready?
Okay.
Sampai di Prancis, bahasa Mbak Inung bisa mengerti kan tidak? Iya. Bahasa Maroko dong ngerti kan tidak? Iya. Bahasa Biak? Iya. Berarti pakai bahasa apa? So basically the video is about that. If you want to travel to the world, what language do you use? Is it your tribal language? And they said, no. Is it Indonesian language? And they said, no. So what language is it? And they mentioned another tribal language. So they were like making fun of my teachings, and I was okay, because the most important thing is not making them understand the English right away, but to make them interested and believe that they can learn English and they can travel and beat the world. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Billy. Maybe one of you in the future will be the next Billy Bambrasan. Okay, O'Neill. So, in your role at World Bank, you probably have seen that many low-income or low-middle-income countries face significant challenges in providing education. What are some concrete, specific steps that public-private partnerships can do to support inclusive education, including for some of the most marginalized people in the world? And I give you 7 minutes to present your answer and also maybe sharing your experiences in World Bank. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. So again, I'm really happy to be here and share the World Bank perspective on this topic, but also raise some of the discussions we had as part of the Youth Summit. because it really aligns with the topic of this theme, the topic of this pre-summit, which is diversity and inclusion. And really briefly, the World Bank Group Youth Summit is an event organized annually, the biggest World Bank Group event for youth, by youth, that invites young people between the age of 18 and 35 to discuss issues of development. And this year, the theme was Unlocking the Power of Inclusion for Equitable Growth. And we highlighted inclusion under 3 buckets: social inclusion, economic inclusion, and environmental inclusion. And we also made sure that in each session, participants and speakers were able to share their perspective on what it means for them to be inclusive. So before even answering your question, I would like to ask someone in our audience, maybe in the back, because I see that they are really active, to share with me and with us, with all the audience, what they think is for them inclusion in the perspective of youth, what it is to be inclusive of youth. So if someone wants to take the stand and share their vision, don't be shy. I've seen you were really active.
Okay.
Oh, I see someone over there.
Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
We have to, O'Neill.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm here. I'm Mario. For me, inclusion is no discrimination. It's not about where are you from, it's no danger, it's no where are your ethnic is. So inclusion is about who you are and be who you are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the second one, Nisin, please.
So I'll answer in sign language. Inclusive, for me, it's not left behind. And everyone that left behind should be involved. And every plans that government has should be involved. And everyone should be involved by all meaning. And they have to ask what they need, what their capabilities, and everyone should know their rights. And no one will not feeling left. Because in my experience, I ever felt left behind, and it was really bad for me and really sad for me. And if there's no inclusivity, makes they are excluded and also discriminated. That's for me about inclusivity in Indonesian Sign Language. Thank you.
And I see another one behind. Yeah, in the corner. Okay, please.
Check. Okay, good night everyone. Thank you for the questions. So I'm going to give my brief explanations about the meanings of inclusive education for me. So basically, the Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has said that education is for everyone without looking from any discriminations from disabilities, gender, ethnic background, and aspect of identity. And inclusive education is also reflect to the right of the children to get education as the universal right of the universal human right. By so, inclusive education shall be shared to all the children without looking any ground. And also we have to know together that inclusive education is not only for the children but also to the teachers as the educators to get the professional trainings as well, for especially for treaties areas. Thank you.
Okay. Wow, they are so excited to answer the question.
Yeah,
okay, back to you, O'Neill.
Thank you very much. So the reason I did that was first to make sure that everyone was still awake, because I know it's really late here. So I'm glad to see that you're still really engaged. And the other reason was also to show that although you presented different definition, the core vision that we have of inclusion is similar for everyone. here, and that's also the same vision that the World Bank shares. And that's what they tend to foster with the different projects that the World Bank conducts. So in terms of projects with regard to education, so actually the World Bank Group is the largest financer of education project in developing countries, working in 90 countries, so that's a lot of countries. And for instance, if we take the case of Indonesia, the World Bank has already conducted more than 100 projects in Indonesia to foster education. And there was actually a report that was published in 2020 that called The Promise of Education in Indonesia, that highlights the different progress that have been made, but also talks about the different things that can be further done to ensure that education is more inclusive. And that includes some of the examples you provided. Now, in terms of the different projects that the World Bank is conducted, I think like to talk about the most recent one, they conducted a lot of projects in Africa. So there was one in Senegal that allowed more than 2,000 children to have access to preschool. And then there's another one that is interesting, and I think it's really important. It's in Liberia, that fostered and financed the construction of schools for basic education. And I think that when we talk about education, it's really important to keep in mind that obviously there's a lot of programs that we can do, but a lot of people still cannot read and write. And fostering programs that provide at least access to basic education is really important. So I think that's where this program is interesting. We also talked about digital literacy. And I think that in this day and age, being able to have digital skills is really important. And again, the World Bank Group, through its different projects, is fostering that. And they actually did a project, I think it's in Rwanda, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, exactly, that provide digital skills for women between the age of 18 and 35 to make sure, and who are business owner or who own or informal businesses, to make sure that they have the digital skills to be implemented, to be well included in the economy. Because education, especially for youth, is also a way for youth to take part in the economy and benefit of the opportunities of the economy. So that's also a way to foster inclusion. And so, yeah, so I think I partially answered some of your questions.
You have 1 minute left.
Okay, yeah, so I think that in terms of everything that that relates to education, what I could add is that I think that a lot of efforts still need to be done, especially in financing, because we've seen with the pandemic that inequalities that already existed has been exacerbated. So I was talking about the basic knowledge of reading and writing that we have an indicator at the World Bank that we call learning poverty, where we evaluate whether children by the age of 10 are able to write and read. And through this indicator, we've seen that before the pandemic, in low income and middle income country, 53% of persons in the world were not able to write and read by the age of 10. And with the pandemic, that number increased to 63%. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done into that field. Then I would like to conclude just one more thing really quickly. Talking about education, I think that what's also important is to really think of access to education. And obviously, I mentioned again basic education, but we shouldn't forget the minorities and those who I believe are often forgotten, and it's persons with disabilities and also persons in areas of conflict. If you look for statistics for persons with disabilities, they are really limited. So it's really difficult to evaluate how the programs we implement really address their needs. And although some of them can have access to education, education is not really tailored to their needs. So there's a lot of programs that need to be implemented. And lastly, really quick, in terms of children in areas of conflict, we've seen with the war in Ukraine, Afghanistan, Sudan, when there's a conflict or even natural disaster, access to education is challenging for those youth. So programs are also conducted by the World Bank to tackle that.
Okay, thank you, Anya. Yeah, you deserve more time because you fly 8 hours from US. Okay, Pak Iwan, actually I wanted to see you in real life because I always see you virtually. Okay, Pak Iwan. The G20 Education Working Group structure is an excellent forum for exchanging ideas and fostering international collaboration on inclusive education. So what are some concrete specific steps that a forum like the G20 can take to support inclusive education outside the scope of its membership, including for some of the most marginalized people in the world? And also, in your recent press conference, you mentioned about the spirit of gotong royong, or the spirit of cooperation, working collectively to achieve something. So please share to us your thought. Time is yours, Pak Iwan. You have
Thank you.
7 minutes to explain, yeah.
Thank you so much for the question and the opportunity. First of all, we realized, I think when we prepared like the issue note for the education working group, we talked to a lot of stakeholders, either domestically or also internationally, about what are like the most pressing issues that we need, also in the spirit of like our theme as the presidency, which is recover together and recover stronger. And I think from the previous presidency, during the Italian presidency, was already highlighted about the learning poverty and how the learning loss and the learning gap has exacerbated. I think O'Neill mentioned earlier that before the pandemic, it's already like something that we need to address very seriously. And the pandemic makes it worse. I think because we need to understand that the impact of the pandemic is not equal. So the learning loss is not has not an equal impact to like different groups of the society. So the most vulnerable groups, you can define it in terms of many contexts. Can be socio-economic context, let's say poverty, geographical locations, more isolated areas, or areas of like disabilities, gender, and others. They have like much because of their condition, like the how they can deal with, let's say, for instance, the access to the good pedagogical skills or the infrastructure. I think what Steffi mentioned earlier or shared with us is something that is very inspiring, and we can definitely use that kind of idea, innovation to reimagine a better education that can help the most marginalized groups to recover faster. And the learning loss is actually the gap is or the loss is much worse for the most marginalized group, and the recovery takes longer. So if we don't pay particular attention to the most marginalized groups, and I think that will be a very serious social problems coming down the road. So as the presidency, Indonesia emphasized this in our issue note. And thankfully, I think in the first two working group meetings, or the member countries and also the special invitees in the G20 countries in education working group, they are all in the same spirit that we definitely need to pay particular attention to the most marginalized groups. And not only when we think about this, not only like developed and developing nations, which is, I think, something that we also need to pay attention to, but also within even like each country. And there's like this gap that we need to pay attention to. Indonesia as a presidency, we invite countries from developing nations, in addition to some of the countries within the G20 also can be categorized as developing nations. But we also invite countries such as like chair of ASEAN, Cambodia, chair of the African Union, Senegal, also chair of the new partnership for Africans development, NEPAD, Rwanda, chair of the Caribbean Community or CARICOM, Belize and Suriname, and the Pacific Islands, Fiji, because we believe that, again, we need to recover together. So there's a sense of togetherness and to recover stronger, to reimagine a more resilient and better education system for all. So Indonesia wants to, in our presidency, wants to strengthen our commitment to the SDG 4 by 2030, which is quality education for all. That's why our first priority theme in Education Working Group is universal quality education, which basically means quality education for all without exception. So that is our commitment as a country education working group, like all the member countries, and the spirit of gotong royong, which also something that wonderfully accepted by all member countries too in our first two meetings. Even already put forward as an idea, as a suggestion to be used in not only the report, in our one of our deliverables. Part of the main framework for recovery is the gotong royong, but also in the declaration. And this inspires the nation in G20 countries that the spirit of gotong royong is something unique, but something that is very needed for all countries and the global community to recover together and recover stronger. Because gotong royong, as the Indonesian local wisdom, has the essence not only about collaboration, but also there's a sense of social empathy and the sense of a collective social responsibility to help each other and then to move forward together. And this is something that, again, thankfully, and we are also very inspired and inspiring other countries too. So then this can be part of the framework that hopefully we will also share with the United Nations General Assembly, the Transforming Education Summit in New York in September 2022. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Iwan. Give applause to him. Okay, so we still have time for Q&A session. So I will pick up 2 questions from the offline participant and 1 question from the online. Okay, first. Okay, you see? Which one? Okay, okay, please. First.
Yes, I would like to ask questions about the material that you have shared with us about. I would like to address the question to Kipin, the representative from Kipin, and also to the World Bank. A small story, a short story from me. My name is Nisi, and I have a high privilege as a deaf person, but in terms of our friends, our deaf colleagues who learn in special schools for the deaf people, they don't have high privilege as well as me. During the COVID-19, the spread of COVID-19, we know that the situation are getting worse for all of us, including the deaf people. They cannot learn well at school. They don't get the access properly. And there are persons with disability had a mental breakdown, and then they feel much worse because of the quality of education in the school for the deaf. And I would like to address this question for you. Is there any solution from your side, looking back to this situation, and is any recommendation that you can share with us based on the situation that happens and appearance? Because not all deaf people has high privilege as the other deaf people, and we cannot let them behind. And we need to start from the grassroots, and we need to look for the deaf people who live in the grassroots. So is there any solution from you? And based my experience meeting the other deaf people in other area, and just now I met the other deaf person from Papua, and he or she shared about the education system in Papua. And I didn't have that time, I didn't have the answer at that time. I tried to understand he or her explanation using their sign language. And the location in Papua, we know that it's far away from one place to another, and it affects the quality of education that they have here in Papua. So I would like to ask whether you have a recommendation or solution in terms of this situation. This is not about me, but this is for the other deaf people here, especially in Papua, because it is a must for them to have the best quality of education. Because for me, I learned in a public school, in mainstream school. I think what matters is the curriculum or the curricula, because the curriculum in a mainstream school and in a special needs school are totally different. They have a high gap. And the person with And persons with disability, since they were a child, they tend to attend the other schools, the different school from person with not disability. And usually when person start school, person with disability start school at a late age. When usually when I ask the other delegates when the first time they meet the other person with disability, usually they meet them at the later age, not since they were a child. And it is important for us to be brave to communicate with the persons with disability. And I would like to, whether you have a recommendation for this curriculum of the school, because we would like to support people to be brave more when they meet persons with disability and find a way to communicate. Thank you.
Okay, and the second one, please. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. I wouldn't say questions, but it can be input for this platform. Especially has been explained by her about the curriculum. The first one is about the curriculum, that there is a big gap between rural and urban area. So they create by the curriculum in urban area is sometimes not work in a rural area. Kabili has shown about contextual learning process or contextual curriculum that may be the recommendations for the government to create the better curriculum, especially for us in Papua. Sometimes we cannot understand what the curriculum, not for students, but also for the teacher itself. So we hope that there is a better curriculum based on what needs in the rural area itself.
Okay.
The second one is about the trend of informal education. I think that informal education sometimes not get the privilege like Kitong Bisa and the other informal education. So what we need is let's make trend of informal education because sometimes it not get the focus of the government. So thank you so much.
And we have last question from online from Anna Mariel. Please, Anna.
Thank you very much. My question was for the World Bank representative. I think that I really like the way that she placed together all the efforts that have been made for education. And is my audio okay?
Yeah. Please
Yeah,
continue
okay.
your.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Most of my first question was centered around quality education. A lot of times we focus on access to education, but we don't really have this sense of quality behind the education that's being given. And everyone should have the same fair opportunities and to engage internationally and in this type of platform. Sometimes even when it comes to virtual conferences and also the quality of the people who are teaching them. And I think that there's a higher emphasis in not where students learn, but what they learn and how they learn. And my second input was about usually when we focus on providing education in Africa, there's a lot of focus on the same countries that we've sort of seen over and over again. And there's lots of countries in the west side of Africa and in that sort of areas in which there's also lots of needs for education. So I think that there should be a wider focus, not just in certain countries, but also in those that are needed the most, such as countries where there's lots of refugees and like a wider focus in the sense of that we are really being inclusive and that we are acknowledging all the people who are not receiving quality education. And that was my input. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Okay, so basically we have 3 questions and I will give the opportunity for every speakers to respond, maybe 2 until 3 minutes. We have a question from Nishin about the digitalization and people with disability and also the story as well in her school. Maybe you can answer and then continue by Billy, by O'Neill, and Pak Iwan. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can answer 3 questions in
Sure.
all 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah.
Lots of questions. No, this is really great. Thank you, Nisi, for the question. I think maybe if my 2 cents on it, and I'm very sure I cannot capture the entirety of the problem, but I think, what I realize is the internet it solves a lot of problems for us in education. It gives us a lot of content that we need, but it's very difficult when we don't have access to it. So what I mean by that is perhaps in your situation, what I'm hearing from you is, wouldn't it be great if every student could have access to the type of teachers, to the type of quality content that maybe you've been able to access as someone who, has a disability, And I think that is in the parallel track. There are also some students, I think, in the rural areas where they say, hey, wouldn't it be great if I were to be able to access really quality content by the top, MOE teachers. And usually internet will help connect these two things. So I think what my perspective as an ed tech company is, technology helps where technology helps. So what we can do is, just as we've done with the current curriculum, we take the top teachers, we record videos of them, and we allow students everywhere, whether you're rural or you're urban, or whether you're in a big city or in a small city, access to those educational contents. And in the same way, so I think that's kind of where, if we see that there are a lot of broken links, there's room for education, for ed techs to solve as many broken links as possible. And I think that's sort of my recommendation, I suppose, so at the very least, I think what the struggle is there's a scarcity, right? So, how can we take a limited number of resources and be able to distribute it widely? And I think that's sort of where the ed tech role comes in. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stefina. And next to Billy, maybe you can respond his question.
That's actually my good friend. His name is Mario.
Oh, okay. You
And
already know him.
Congratulations for Mario to get the Fulbright scholarship. Yeah, he's going to the USA. And Mario has been the pioneer of Kitong Bisa as well in Sorong. Before then, he started his own non-for-profit in his village. There is an island in Raja Ampat, Raja Ampat Island. And I do agree with the 2 points that he made, and I think Mas Irwan should respond, because Mario gave a very good insights, Mas, that number one, the curriculum in urban and rural should be differentiated, and also the contextual curriculum in Papua. For instance, I had an experience in one of the village, because in Papua, mostly people eat sagu and people eat cassava. And sweet potatoes. So in one of the school, the books from Jakarta was talking about biology, and the biology is giving examples of rice, and the students haven't seen rice in their whole life. So they were confused, like, all right, we learned biology, but we haven't seen rice. What does rice look like? Because we know sagu and we know cassava. So that's one of the examples of how to contextualize curriculum. And number two is representative of the people who deliver the message or teach. For instance, I do believe by your presence tonight, a beautiful young woman that looks alike with the Papuan students, from tonight, they will believe that one day they will also work in the World Bank, like you, right? So that's the example that we can bring, the contextualization that Maria was talking about, the representations, the inclusion, the diversity in the examples that we use. And I totally agree with the 2 points that you make, and I hope Mas Irwan can take it as input for the Ministry of Education. Responding to your curriculum concerns in Papua, firstly, it's very inspiring to see you giving questions and responding in sign language. And it's my concern that we haven't had special education in Papua. Like, mungkin saya salah, Pak Sekda, Pak Ketua DPR, tapi kita di Papua dan Papua Barat belum ada sekolah yang menyediakan guru untuk bahasa Indonesia, the special education teachers, the teachers who can teach for the special students, for these disability students. We haven't had the schools yet. So tonight, looking at that example of the young lady who expressively confident in giving questions and responding, I hope the government, the local government and central government can consider to open special education school for Papuan teachers and Papuan students. I think that's all.
Okay, thank you, Billy. Okay, for O'Neill, maybe the third question from Anna, you can respond it.
Yes, the question online, I also think that you kind of covered both answers, so I can just quickly summarize. But from what I understood, she had a question about the quality of education and access to education. So obviously there are still disparities, and one of the ways to tackle those issues is definitely providing financing to make sure and implementing policies to make sure that the quality of education is equal everywhere. But the problem with policy as a lawyer, that's what I see all the time, is that even if you introduce a law, it takes time to make the effect in practice. So what can be done in the meantime while we're waiting for the effect to be seen? So I think that's where inclusion is key. It's where also working with local communities and understanding the need and working also with the private sector is interesting. I think that every one of us have a power to make change. And if we work together and we try to find solutions together, it's a way also to give an incentive to the government to see that, oh, our people are doing something, so now it's our turn to step up. And I think that that's potentially a way to tackle that and to make sure that the programs are better fit to address the needs of everyone, depending on the social or economic background or region they're at. I also think that leveraging technology is really important, and the program that Steffi is working on is amazing because it also addresses some challenges that we have with technology. Technology works well in big cities, but what about in rural area where you don't even have the infrastructure to have good internet? What can you do? So I think that there's different things that needs to be addressed in those fields to make sure that it's very accessible and the quality of education is spread out throughout. But at the end of the day, it goes through financing and making sure that people's voices are heard. And I'm really impressed by the participants today because they made sure that their voices are heard, and they need to continue because that's how you make an impact and that's how you can see a change.
Okay, thank you, O'Neill. Paiwan, last but not least, you can add some insight or opinion to answer the questions. Please.
Mute.
Mute?
Is on mute.
Please open the mic of Paiwan.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. First of all, I think one thing for sure, and I think we need to believe this wholeheartedly in education. Everyone, every child, including those with disabilities, can reach the highest expectations. This is the fundamental belief of good teaching, good education. Everyone, no matter where they're from, no matter what kind of situation they're in, they can reach the highest expectation. And this is, again, something like a very fundamental belief in education, and all educators and all who works in education should also have this belief. What we need to see, including in like all schools, including schools with students with disabilities, we cannot, like, I think also this is some cases in Indonesia, in the special needs school or sekolah luar biasa, sometimes like the educators try to lower their expectation because they think like, oh, they cannot reach this. And I think this is a fundamental mistake. Again, like every child, no matter what kind of situation they're in, they can reach the highest expectation. And the key to this also, what I think Billy just mentioned, is about teachers. And for me, my own personal experience was when I was in New York. I was studying at Columbia University, and I was a master's student at that time. And I was having discussion, and the one who led my discussion is my friend who was deaf, and led the presentation. That was an eye-opening experience for me. And she was like a doctoral degree student. And then I learned as a master's student to be a teacher. And then I taught in a district in the state, in New York State, and all the classes have like special needs teachers. And so the key to this is also like how we can increase the capacity of the teachers. And Billy just mentioned one of the fundamental thing that we need to change or revise, which is each province should have at least one good teacher education university that have special needs education. Actually, when I visited Papua Barat and Papua, and I didn't find like the teacher education university there, and I asked the local government how did they recruit teachers for special needs schools, and they mentioned that they need to recruit from Sulawesi or from teacher education universities in Java. I think this is not sustainable, and this is what I've been communicating also to the teacher education universities to open the new degree program in special needs education or pendidikan khusus or pendidikan luar biasa. The second one for curriculum, I just want to give, it's not just a context now, it's real. It's called Curriculum Merdeka. This curriculum is more flexible, more relevant, and more simplified. So if the condition, like what Billy is saying, was different, definitely 100% the teachers and the schools can contextualize the teaching and learning according to the local context, because this is like a school-based curriculum. So then the teachers and the school principals have the freedom to contextualize their education. Last but not least, I want to mention about one thing. We need to also believe that the fundamental in inclusive concept, a human being is a human being. A human being is a human being, no matter where they're from, no matter where they were born, what color of their skin, what identities that they have, socially or culturally. A human being is a human being. So this is a principle, a fundamental principle of human right that we need to share within our education system, and also how we manage the stakeholders in our respective countries. And for young people, I'd like also to call, let's join the movement. Let's do something together in education. Let's reimagine education. I think young people can understand this better about what kind of more relevant, how to reimagine education so it can be part of the solution instead of the part of the problem for our society. And I think maybe I hope Billy can also step up and also inspire the nation, maybe the next Minister of Education, because our current Minister of Education is a millennial, right? He was elected when he was 34 years old. I think Billy is not far away from that. So we have high hopes for young people, and Indonesia has proven our Minister of Education is a millennial. So young people can step up, and young people can reach this highest position, or to contribute to make the changes happen. Let's be the change that we wish to see. Not just let's discuss, but let's do something. Let's join this movement. Thank you.
Okay. Just a very quick one. A message from the president. I almost forgot to say.
Okay.
The president was very happy that this pre-summit event is held in Papuan province. So thank you so much for the Y20, Michael, and the other co-chairs, juga Pemda Papua Barat, Ketua. Thanks for hosting this event, because this is a very historical moment that maybe the next international conferences there will be held also in this province. And tonight has proven the diversity and inclusion in Indonesia, because you believe that this kind of conference, you invite international guests to come to the most eastern part of the country to show that this country is very big and diverse. And Pak Iwan also mentioned about satu pertanyaan dari Mario that I have an answer about the non-formal and informal learning centers. I think that's an opportunity for all of us to take part, to do real actions, because like what she said, Indonesia is very big. Indonesia is very big, 17,000 islands, and Papua alone is like far away from each other. The villages, the districts, the regencies is far away from each other. So the solutions of the education that we can do right now is going back to our villages after tonight events, open a learning centers, a non-formal one, adopting a curriculum from the Ministry of Education, give access to the other Papuan students, and inspire and motivate them. Tell them that tonight in Manokwari, gathering more than 50 young leaders from all different parts of the world, and you can be one of them in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Billy. Actually, I wanted to make a conclusion, but it was presented by Billy. Okay, guys, this is a so complete perspective, because we have perspective from private sector, from the government, from the World Bank, from the activists as well. So for tomorrow, please prepare for a local participant for presenting your policy proposal. This is a good input for you to make it better for tomorrow. You still have one night to discuss. And I wish we had more time to discuss, but the time is limited by the organizer, so we have to take rest after this. So please big applause for all the speakers today. Okay, that's all, and thank you. We will take picture first. Okay, with Pak Iwan as well, please.
Okay, before I please you to return to your seat, please take a picture together. Probably we will take two pictures. One picture, you can sit on your chair, and the second one, please stand up, all right? Okay. And thank you, Abe, for moderating a very interesting topic. It's about education. As we know, Indonesia education system is still an issue. Furthermore, talking about digital transformation or digital technology implementing in our education system is another level. So I think we really need more people, especially from young generation, to contribute to create a lot of models to implement in our education systems in order to be inclusive. Please do not go anywhere. Abe and everyone, please stay on stage to accompany me here. No, to accompany here. Please stay right here. And before we conclude this day, I would like to thank our partners who will continue to walk alongside us as we move forward to the Y20 organizer from every country of G20 members, and we also wish our delegates to have fruitful discussion and negotiation ahead. Guys, do you know what today? Do you know what to do on stage? No? Okay, I would like to invite everyone to come on stage. Let's take a picture together. Please, everyone. It's about inclusivity, right? We're talking about inclusivity now. Let's do it. Implement with a backup action. All right, please. Exactly. Please come on stage, everyone. Please, let's take a picture together. Please, everyone, I invite everyone here in the ballroom to take a picture together with our moderator and our speakers. And Pak Andi probably from Zoom. I think we're gonna do it part by part. We don't want to ruin this stage, right? Because we still have an event tomorrow. And ladies and gentlemen, please, you can watch our town hall meeting, a discussion between Indonesian delegates and local youths of Central Indonesia on Y20 online platform tomorrow. And also do not miss the second talk show, which will be talking about youth in creative economy, live stream tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Indonesian time. On behalf of the Y20 co-chairs and the organizing committee from Indonesian Youth Diplomacy, we thank you for attending.